Three.
Morning everyone, and welcome to those who are watching the proceedings via our webcast this morning. Can I welcome you all to this full meeting of Salford City Council. I would also just take a moment to say to all of the members and those watching, happy St Patrick's Day. At this point, I'm going to ask for the civic prayers. So can I please ask you to join with me this morning, which will be conducted by Rabbi Simmons. Rabbi Simmons, please.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for asking me to conduct the prayers this morning. Please share with me the following prayer. We first of all thank God on behalf of all the people of the city of Salford for all the dedication and effort of the city's leaders, councillors and workers who try to make sure that the peace and welfare of all the residents of the city of Salford is maintained. The ancient prophet, Jewish prophet Jeremiah enjoined us to seek the peace of the city where God has placed us and pray to God for its welfare, and this we do this morning. Motivated and empowered by those words, we look to God to grant wisdom, discernment, tolerance and understanding to those who are gathered today to make decisions on behalf of our city and all those who reside in it. In the words of King Solomon from the book of Proverbs, God gives wisdom from his mouth and knowledge and understanding. In prayer, we express our thanks to all those who have been working with such devotion and commitment in the National Health Service, social care services, and the leadership of the city to preserve the health and welfare of all of the city of Salford in this time of pandemic. We pray for the recovery of all those who are ill, isolating or otherwise suffering as a result of this pandemic or otherwise. We further pray to God that the Council's deliberations will reflect upon and embrace the wide and diverse nature of the residents of Salford and work to provide with social justice and equity for all those who are most in need of help during this time, particularly those who are living in insecurity and uncertainty. May God grant that the Council's deliberations are conducted with harmony and wisdom, and let us say Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi Simmons, for those prayers. Okay, so again, can I ask people just to bear with me? Before we start council, can I ask all members to join with me in a minute's silence to pay tribute to former councillor Alan Clay, who sadly passed away. Alan represented the people of Claremont and Weed on Salford City Council between 1995 and 2014. Before we start, he also served as a ceremonial mayor to join with the final year of that period. To pay tribute, and at the same time, councillor Alan Clay, time to remember man, the wife of our colleague, Alan represented the people of Barry Warner, who was mayoress during his year in 1995 and 2014. And he also served as mayor to join with the final year of that period. To pay tribute, and at the same time, councillor Alan Clay, time to remember man, the wife of our colleague, Alan represented the people of Barry Warner, who was mayoress during his year in 1995 and 2014. And he also served as mayor to join with the final year of that period. To pay tribute, and at the same time, councillor Alan Clay, time to remember man, the wife of our colleague, Alan represented the people of Barry Warner, who was mayoress during his year in 1995 and 2014. And he also served as mayor to join with the final year of that period. To pay tribute, and at the same time, councillor Alan Clay, time to remember man, the wife of our colleague, Alan represented the people of Claremont and Weed, who was mayoress during his year in 1995 and 2014. And he also served as mayor to join with the final year of that period. To pay tribute, and at the same time, councillor Alan Clay, time to remember man, the wife of our colleague, Alan represented the people of Claremont and Weed, who was mayoress during his year in 1995. Thank you, members. members, before we start, we also before we move on, Rabbi Simmons, I wondered if I could ask you to kindly just turn off your camera. You're happy? I'm happy for you to stay with us. If you could just turn off your camera, please, that would be great. Thank you, members. Item 2, moving on. Can I ask the Senior Democratic Officer, Mike Rell, to read out the names of members present, Rabbi Simmons, of those who have submitted to kindly just turn off your camera. You're happy?
Yeah, those I've got present are City Mayor Paul Dennick, Councillors Antrobus, August, Bailey, Barnes, Bellamy, Bentham, Boschel, Brocklehurst, Brooks, Birch, Kamel, Clark, Cohen, Collinson, Critchley, Dawson, Dickman, Edwards, Fletcher, Karen Greedo, Robin Greedo, Goulden, City Mayor Paul Dennick, Councillors Antrobus, August, Bailey, Joe Barnes, Kelly, Bellamy, Ben Lancaster, Light, Buckle, Linden, Cusker, Burton, Mel, Mashlar, Cohen, Ashton, Merry, Critchley, Mullen, Nelson, Dickman, Caesar, Evans, Gina Reynolds, Camille Reynolds, Ryan, Saunders, Sharp, Turner, Wade Hines, Jopis, John Hall, Joe Ward, Kelly, Bellamy, Weir, Lancaster, Wilson, and received appointees from Councillors Mashiter, Morris, Mashlar, Womersham, Cohen, Ashton, Merry, Critchley, Mullen, Nelson, Dickman, Caesar, Evans, Gina Reynolds, Camille Reynolds, Ryan, Saunders, Sharp, Turner, Wade Hines, Jopis, John Hall, Joe Ward, Kelly, Bellamy, Weir, Lancaster, Wilson, and received appointees from Councillors Mashiter, Morris, I've got Councillor Womersham on the list, yes. Merry, Critchley, Mullen, Nelson, Dickman,
Chair, sorry, Councillor Gordon. I'm here with apologies. I'll have to leave a few minutes early.
Okay, that's thanks. Thank you for that. Okay, moving on to item 3, declarations of. Oh, sorry, Councillor Antrobus.
Sorry, Chair. I just wondered whether it would be appropriate for the council to send a letter of condolence to Councillor Mashiter, given the death of his father.
I can't see a problem with that. I think that can be arranged through member services, if that's okay with everybody.
Agreed? Yes, agreed.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on, declarations of interest. I've been notified, City Mayor, you have want to declare an interest?
Yeah, just for the purposes, obviously, of the record, I don't think this is a prejudicial interest of any sense, but obviously I do chair the Greater Manchester High Rise Task Force, so it's just to alert colleagues to that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Chair, Arnie again, just my usual declaration of chaplaincy in the care home in Salford. If anything's discussed.
Chair, just declaring an interest as the director of DeReeve.
Sorry, Chair, can I also declare an interest as a DeReeve director and also sit on the landing board?
Thank you, Councillor Keller. Okay, are there any more personal prejudicial?
Yeah, I've got my hand up, Mr. Mayor. I declared interest in any item regarding Forviva.
Right, yeah. Thanks.
I didn't say my hand up as well.
Right.
Declaring an interest in the Salfordian, the reports on the agenda.
Right.
Same goes for me, Chair. The same, Councillor Hines, the same goes for me.
And the same goes for me, Chair. Councillor
Sorry,
Bowles.
Chair, I didn't declare that either. Should have declared that. Sorry, Councillor Keller.
Okay, can I just check that those councillors, is the comment box not working for you? Because I'm struggling to see hands, that's all.
I struggle to see the hands box.
Yeah. Just for clarity, it would be easier if you use a comment. Yeah. Okay, Councillor, and now I've got Councillor McIntyre is declaring interest in those as well. Okay, so are there any more? Any more for any more?
Yeah. Councillor Dawson, it's for housing.
Thank you.
Councillor Bowlby for housing.
Comments box, I think I've got the last one there. Who was that last one, please?
Councillor Collinson for the Salfordian.
Thank you. Okay. Right. Item 4. Minutes of the meeting held on the 20th January and the 24th of February. Are the minutes of the following 3 meetings approved as a correct record?
Aye.
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 Ceremonial Mayor, I want to speak on the minute of the 20th of January, please.
Yeah, I can see that you put in the comment, Councillor.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Garrido.
Yeah, item 4, the minute of the meeting held on the 20th of January, and it's minute 60 at the top of page 3. I think it actually omits a section. I would ask that this minute be amended to include, at the end of paragraph 3, the following. In response to a comment by Councillor Karen Garrido, the City Mayor agreed that the relevant officers and lead members would supply the information on which the legal advice was given. If this amendment is accepted, I would like to comment under matters arising.
Okay. I'm struggling is that the amendment that you would like, or is that verbatim what the meeting said?
No, the amendment I want to put in, right, it is an important, and I have spoken to Mr. Ralph and said I was raising it today because I didn't want it to be seen that I was complaining about the minute taking. It's just that it's totally admitting that I asked the Mayor to actually let me have all the documents regarding the advice that was given to the QC, and he agreed that that I would have it, and that's omitted from these minutes. And I think it's important that they are in because the Mayor did say, the City Mayor did say that I could have those points that were given to the QC.
I don't think that is a particularly controversial amendment. Is anyone unhappy that should happen? No? Okay.
Can I just quickly speak on this? Obviously, this relates to the debate that was had at the last council meeting with regards to the local plan. And if I recall correctly, opposition members have received briefings on this, and obviously the legal advice that we'd received had been shared with opposition members. But obviously the request being made here is for that to be provided. I don't have an issue with providing that information. In terms of agreeing specifically to the wording of the request from Councillor Garrido, I guess we'd need to just revisit the live stream to precisely see what was agreed and what was said, just to make sure that any wording that's agreed in terms of amending minutes reflects what actually happened. And obviously these meetings are recorded, so it is very easy for us to do that.
City Mayor, you stole my thunder there. That was my next suggestion, that we would then do it from that particular meeting. So, Councillor Garrido, do you want to come back?
Can I just say that? Yeah, can I just say that? Save everybody trawling through it. It's at about 41 minutes into the meeting. I think it's around about 40 to 41 minutes into the meeting. If that needs to be checked quickly, because it is there, as I say.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Garrido, for pointing us in the direction. Okay, so I'm going to be moving the meeting on because I'm quite confident that subject to the agreement of those wording that we can then accept those minutes. Yes. Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Garrido, for pointing us in the direction. Okay, so I'm going to be. Hello, can anyone hear me?
We've got an echo, Mr. May.
It's echoing. Yeah, it's a big echo.
Just make sure everyone's got the mic turned off. I'll repeat what I said, which is subject to confirmation of those amendments. Are we happy now to accept them?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Moving on now to item 5, receipt of petitions and communications. I've been notified that there are 2 petitions this morning, and the first one is from Councillor Leitner. Do you want to say a quick word of what the subject is, Councillor Leitner?
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Chair. I have a petition here which I shall be emailing to Democratic Services as instructed. This petition, I just want to say a couple of short words, just explain what it is. This is a petition in regard to the land at number 11 Northumberland Street, which is owned by the adjacent community centre and synagogue. This land has been used for decades for various community services. However, an age-old obsolete restriction currently allows the land to be used solely as a bowling green, something which there is no local demand for. This land is no longer a community asset, but rather a community liability. Now, the council...
Councillor Leitner.
Yes.
Receipt of permission, petitions does not allow a great speech. So I can allow you just to tell us an introductory time. And I just want to confirm that you understand how to send it to the council. And with that, yes. I'm to stand down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leitner. Councillor King.
Yes, Ceremony Mayor, thank you. I have a petition signed by around 100 people from Broughton complaining about the withdrawal of a bus service without any consultation. They are often elderly people ranging in ages from 77, 80, 83, 86 and 95, and they are requesting the service be reintroduced. And there are also a couple of letters complaining about it. Thank you, Chair and Council.
Thank you, Councillor King. Okay, moving on. Item 6. This is the retiring elected members' presentations. There are a number of members who are not seeking re-election at the forthcoming election. And on behalf of the council, I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you to them for all their hard work that they have done for their communities. For your information, the retiring members are Councillor Antrobus. I'll use their full Sunday names if that's okay. Councillor Derek Antrobus, Councillor Gillian Collinson, Councillor Richard Critchler, Councillor Laura Edwards, Councillor Stephen Hesling, Councillor David Jolly, Councillor Charlie McIntyre, Councillor Brendan Ryan, Councillor Michael Wheeler, and Councillor Ronna Wilson. And I would like to call one of these members one at a time to give us a few words before they go on their jolly ways and hopefully have a fulfilling retirement. So with that, can I ask Councillor Derek Antrobus to speak, please?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ceremonial Mayor, for giving me the opportunity to express my gratitude to all those that I've worked with in my years on the City Council. First of all and foremost, I'd like to thank my wife and family who've had to put up with unsocial hours and sometimes some very unpleasant intrusions into our domestic life, and I think that will probably resonate with many members here today. I'd also like to thank the people of Swinton North for returning me in each and every election during the ward's existence, the Swinton North Labour Party for selecting me as its candidate and campaigning for me, and in particular my fellow ward councillors, Councillor Hines and Councillor Dawson, who've compensated for my many deficiencies, and Councillor Mashiter, who has done the same during our long and productive collaboration on planning. But I'd like to thank all members for their engagement over the years and the officers for their wise counsel and diligence. In particular, I would like to thank all the frontline staff. I've always been very conscious during my time as a councillor that the decisions that we make in cosy committee rooms are carried out by workers who can be digging roads, putting themselves in harm's way managing traffic or wading through floodwaters. They are the people who should receive accolades, and now more than ever we should realise who the essential workers are, and we should struggle to make sure that they are rewarded fairly. My good friend Councillor Sharp asked me some months ago what had been the highlights of my time as a councillor, and I did struggle to answer. Eventually I arrived at two. One was standing with Ben Walsworth in the middle of the vast expanse of Salford Quays sometime in the early 1980s, when everything had been demolished. There was nothing as far as the eye could see, and myself and Ben turned to each other and said, "Gosh, what have we done?" Well, we now know what we did. The council created a new part of the city which provided homes, jobs, a good environment, and transformed the image of the council. The second was standing with Ben Dolan, Chris Findlay, Will Horsfall, and Councillor Sharp in the middle of the vast expanse of the Mosslands. And again, there was nothing as far as the eye could see. The council has known the ecological value of the peat bog for many years and has paved the way for its restoration. But the next big thing we can do is to make that fantastic resource more accessible to everyone, linking it to our HS Bridgewater, the canal cycleways, the Wigan Flashes and Cutacre Country Park, and add to our green reputation. And I think those two highlights demonstrate something. First of all, that the City Council still has a vision for transforming the city, but the history shows that we have the capacity. Finally, I would like to proffer my personal thanks to our City Mayor, Paul Dennett. His passion for equality has been inspirational. Under his leadership, the city will continue its amazing transformation, but it will do so in a fair way, the Salford way, the Labour way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Antrobus. Could I now ask Councillor Julian Collison to speak, please?
Thank you, Chair. Colleagues and friends, happy St Patrick's Day. I should have been wearing my green dress today, but felt actually it would be more appropriate to wear my blue one, as it's my Conservative blue one. It has been a huge honour and privilege to serve on this council and to represent the people of Boothstown and Ellenbrook for the past 11 years. It should have been 10 years, but I couldn't escape last year. We don't always agree, nor should we. It should be in debating our differences that we represent our city, as tough decisions have to be made. However, there have been many occasions when debate has turned into much more than political banter, and members have been made to feel extremely uncomfortable. I don't think this is acceptable. Lively debate is healthy, but to be totally disrespected for just doing your best is not. We are not politicians, we are councillors. I was elected by local people to represent them on local issues. I have dealt with some of the most complex cases imaginable. The residents whom I do my best to support have serious problems which can only be dealt with at a local level. They just need help. They aren't bothered about which political party helps them, but they come to me because I am their local councillor and am regarded as a good listener and communicator. I challenge issues which are national decisions when I can, but we have to accept that we are limited in both number and influence. If we work together better on areas which affect us all, we may end up with more positive outcomes. I personally would have liked to have been more involved in cross-party work during my time, but that was not to be. However, I am in no doubt that we are all here because we want to make a positive difference. I very much hope that that continues with whoever the next 60 councillors will be in May. Apart from working with my residents, I think you will all agree that my passion has been working in children's services, namely fostering panel, children's scrutiny and corporate parenting panel. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the officers and my colleagues who have supported my work over the last 11 years. My role as a magistrate is already developing, as I was appointed Vice Chair of the Women's Problem Solving Court for Greater Manchester recently, and will be concentrating on this role when I have more time from May, along with my Academy Trust Board work, supporting my family and parents, and enjoying my almost 2-year-old granddaughter. I wish you all every happiness and success for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Collinson. I now call upon Councillor Richard Critchley.
Thank you, Chair. I think I remember my first council meeting. Someone actually said to me, they said, I don't think you're going to be around very long as a councillor in Wharton South, which was a very charming introduction to politics. But I'm quite pleased. I've now done 9 years, which I'm very proud of. And after a lonely start, I was lucky to be joined by Councillor Edwards and Councillor Brooks, and I do think we make a great team in the ward. We're the youngest group of councillors in the city. They've managed to make me feel very old, but I think both of them are exceptionally talented, have a huge amount to offer, and I do thank them both for working with me and making the job of being a councillor good fun. I do believe we have an amazing city mayor, and I think we also have some amazing talent in the council chamber. We probably don't say enough nice things to each other, but there is a lot of talent there, and I hope everyone gets a chance to shine and show off that talent and the best of their abilities. One of the best bits of advice I was ever given when I became a councillor, and I think it was from a Conservative councillor, so I hope my colleagues don't shout at me for saying this, but they said, no matter how hard you try, you won't be able to please everyone. But they said, don't worry, the important thing is that's okay. It's politics, it's the nature of the job. And it's true, and I think we've all learned the hard way. We do all try our best. We think we've done an amazing job, we've worked our hardest, and at the end of it, we always end up with someone complaining. But I think we do all try, and we do want the best for our residents. I have loved being a councillor for Wharton South. And I thank those residents for putting their faith in me for so long. It has been an absolute honour, and I really hope I've made a difference. Before I became a councillor, I got to stand in front of a full council meeting and ask questions as a member of the public. And I remember how daunting that process was, but I did it because I didn't feel at the time the council was listening as much as it could to ordinary residents. And I always wanted, so I always tried to keep that in mind. And therefore, I always wanted to make sure my residents felt like they were being listened to and had a voice. And I really hope I've managed to do that. I think I just really want to quickly mention, obviously, my nan, my mum, dad, and my partner, Rick. They have put up with a lot for 9 years. I know it's been difficult. I know they're sick of hearing about politics in the council. So they're going to be very glad to have me back. And I look forward to spending more time with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Critchley. I now call upon Councillor Laura Edwards, please.
I'm only a Salfordian by chance. My parents are from Moston. They almost moved to Royton before I was born in Oldham to be near our extended family, but ended up settling on Boothstown in Salford because I had cousins in Little Hulton and in Boothstown. I'm only a councillor by chance. In 2017, I applied to be on the Labour panel of candidates with the anticipation of not being accepted, but being able to know more about the process. Within 3 months, I was a candidate, and within 9 months, I was elected. I was honoured when Wharton South members shortlisted me to be their candidate, and I was surprised when I won their selection. I was 19 when I stood, and many would consider putting someone young up in a marginal seat as a political risk. I was then proud to prove them wrong by gaining the largest majority the seat has had in then 7, but now 10 years. Having lived in the west side of Salford for almost all my life until that point, I knew so many people in Wharton South already, but I'm so lucky to have met so many more. I want to thank Nigel, Jill, Jean, Marlene, John, Rob, Samuel and Sharon for all of their help. I have to also extend thanks to my family and my partner Lewis. There is no limit to the time that you can give in your role as a councillor, which inevitably impacts your family life. I'm really looking forward to spending more time with my family post-May. It would be remiss of me to also not mention former councillor Ian Lindley, who despite being from opposing parties has always been polite and respectful in the year that we served together. I have to thank our local neighbourhood team, Vinnie, Faye and Jordan, who are shining examples of local government employees, and my former youth workers when I was a young person in Salford, Martin and Rob, who still support young people in Salford today. The biggest thanks of all goes to my ward colleagues, Richard Critchley and Joshua Brooks. Richard in particular has been a mentor to me and Josh, and he's a shining example of a local councillor who's truly dedicated to the people that he serves. Being the youngest ever councillor elected to this chamber came with so much responsibility because I felt pressure to prove that age has no means on effectiveness. I really hope in my 3 years that I've proved that. I've worked so hard in the past few years, and alongside the people of Walkden South, we have achieved so much. The decision to stand up for public office is far easier than the decision to stand down. Leaving is bittersweet, but I look back on this period of my life so fondly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Can I now call on Councillor Stephen Hesling, please? Councillor Hesling?
Oh, thanks, Chair. Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you. We've lost you again, Councillor. Councillor Hesling?
Sorry, Chair. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Just having some technical problems. Right,
carry on.
thanks.
We can hear you now, thanks.
Thanks. My main thank you today goes to the people of Weaston Seedley, who I've had the privilege to represent for the last 8 years. I feel very lucky to have been elected to serve the community where I was born and grew up, and have met and worked with so many residents over that time. I would also like to thank the many colleagues and party members who have helped and supported me, and without whom I wouldn't have got here in the first place. Also, the council staff who work so hard to resolve issues and implement council policy. I came onto the council to try and deliver change for my community, and I've really enjoyed all the campaigns I've been involved in, whether that was campaigning against the stock transfer of council houses in the early days of my term, fighting to stop the Weast Hotel becoming a hostel, or pushing to ensure that all HMOs have to have planning permission. Fighting for change in our communities and social justice is a huge part of my life, and at 31 I have many ideas and causes that I will still be championing. I'm looking forward to carrying on my community work in a different way, and I'm glad of the extra time that I'll have to get more involved in the local party and continue to ensure that Labour is returned to office in the city. The Labour Party continues to be the best vehicle to deliver the change we need to see in the country and in the city, and I look forward to continuing to work with colleagues here and within the wider movement now and in the years to come. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hesling. Can I now call on Councillor David Jolly, please?
Okay, thank you, John. Well, where to begin? It's been a very long time. I was first elected in 1979 at the same time as Derek Antrobus, although Ronnie Wilson, who comes later, was actually first elected the year before us in 1978. It's been pointed out to me that there are several people here on the council who weren't even born when we first became councillors, and I think that may even include the city mayor. When we were elected that year, there were 7 of us. It was the same day as the 1979 general election. And in those days, you did a draw for seniority. Don't know whether that happens now. The person who came top was somebody called George Stonehouse, who a couple of you may remember. He was already retired. I came second and Derek came last. And so I've always had seniority over Derek, which I remind him of from time to time. It was a very different council in 1979, not least and perhaps most significantly because there were very few women on the council. People say today that there should be more women on the council quite correctly, but there was only a handful in those days. So much so it was male orientated that a few years later when John Bryans became the mayor, we were told in no uncertain terms by the then town clerk Roger Rees, who died recently, that the title was Mr. Mayor. and that was always Mr. Mayor, whether it was a woman or not. And it wasn't Mayoress, because a Mayoress was a consort and could only be a woman. We called her Madam Mayor anyway, but that was against protocol. One thing about the council in those days, though, there was a lot of working class men, trade unionists on this council, and a lot of them were from the wartime generation. So you had people like Harry Wrigley, who was a Burma veteran, Joe Thomas and our old friend Ben Walsworth, who both held the military medal, and the leader, Les Huff, was a Royal Marine Commando and D-Day veteran. These were tough and determined guys who were determined to get things done. And I too, Derek, remember the Keys, which was Les Huff's pet project in many ways. And I remember seeing that vast open space with that damn grain elevator in the middle of it, reinforced concrete, which took about 6 months to get down with a wrecking ball, if I remember. So I do want to give all the thanks to everybody I've worked with, particularly all those officers, many officers over the years who have invariably given good service and been cooperative and helpful. There's also the many councillors that I've worked alongside. Firstly, in Weast, there was Nellie and Herbert Openshaw, Ronnie Wilson, Tony Ullman, Sir Mark Hendrick, as he is now, and Alan Clegg, who we obviously remembered earlier on in the meeting. At Barton, where I came back in 2002, there was Brian Carter, Ken Memory, Nev Clark, John and Michelle Mullen, Norbert Potter and Michelle Barnes as well. Over the years, there can be many stresses in your life, impinging on your family and council duties, raising a family, work pressures, personal and health issues. I've always been fortunate to have had good colleagues and fellow councillors around me to help me through those times. Also, of course, the biggest thank goes to family for all the help that they give, especially my wife Maureen. And as you know, Maureen is from Northern Ireland, and today, coincidentally, is St. Patrick's Day. I'd already been on the council a few years when I met Maureen, so she's always had to put up with me being on the council and the time that this takes out of family life. Soon we'll have to put up with each other all the time, which will be both interesting and highly enjoyable. So I'd like to wish good luck to everybody who's standing in the election in a few weeks' time, which I will not be involved in as a candidate for the first time in many years. That good wishes, of course, qualified by party allegiances. I'm not going away. I'm sure I'll see many of you in the future. I'm going to continue as chair, currently as chair of Lewis Street Primary School in the ward that I still represent. But as I say, I'll see many of you around for many years. Hopefully, I'll stay active, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Jolly. Can I now call upon Councillor Charlie McIntyre?
Thank you, Mr. Ceremonial Mayor. I've already written to every councillor and to the media, thanking my constituents for the support and the guidance through the 18 years that I've been a councillor. I need to thank the members of staff of the council, particularly the member services, for their support. And also, I believe, unless something's changed, it's Ms. Roque for last day, City Solicitor. So I'd like to thank her for the encouragement, guidance she gave me in my term as ceremonial mayor. And I think the last thing I want to say is a belated happy St Andrew's Day. Thank you.
Good call there. Thank you, Councillor McIntyre. Can I now call on Councillor Brendan Ryan, please?
Hi, everybody. Can I say, first of all, thanks for the gift and certificate, and happy St. Patrick's Day. Life really is about the friendship, the teamwork and the partnerships. And over the 50 years living and working in Salford, I have been lucky to enjoy these things. I can say that the spirit of Salford is alive in every neighbourhood. So that includes our members of the opposition. This obviously is an opportunity to say thank you to everybody that I've met and come across in the days that I've been on the council. I would like to say thanks especially to councillors Bellamy and Brocklehurst, who are my partners in Walton North, and we've managed to keep the people on our side. I would like to say thanks to our neighbourhood team, especially Vinnie Nash, Faith Light, Jordan Moore, and in the past, Claire Fewings. Thanks to the colleagues and members of the CLP including Barbara Keeley and her staff. Thanks to my colleagues in Little Hulton and Warton South. Our meetings are all joint together, so we have a good time there. Thanks to the Democratic Services Department, especially Michelle, Mike and Karen, and the heads of service in this city who provide with their staff the best service in many ways as far as the country is concerned. Especially I'd like to thank obviously the people who I've worked with on scrutiny panels and other panels. I've worked mainly on corporate parenting and community and neighbourhoods, and I'll take this opportunity to press to you that most members should be joining the corporate parenting panel, and councillors Walsh and Collinson will back me up on that. Finally, obviously, the people of Warton and Little Hulton who have supported me over all these years. So in the end, it's been a pleasure, it's been a privilege to have spent all this time alongside members, alongside the people in this city. It is a progressive city, and with the help of the people in this chamber, it will continue. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Can I now call on Councillor Michael Wheeler, please?
Thank you, Chair. It was an absolute privilege to be elected 10 years ago to represent the community in which I grew up. And it's been an honour to serve Eccles ever since. Although I must say that being my own mum's councillor has been quite an experience. Despite my joking, however, the support of my family, including my amazing wife, has been crucial over the years. As I step down, I'm really pleased to have this opportunity to say a few well-deserved thank yous. First of all, and most importantly, thank you to the people of Eccles for their faith and trust in electing and re-electing me. Eccles will always be home and is undoubtedly the best ward in the whole city. The people I have met, the work they do, and the friends I've made leave me grateful and will stay with me forever. I also want to thank Ray Masheter, former councillor Jimmy Hunt, my dad and Eccles Labour for their hard work and worn shoe leather and support in getting me elected in the first place. I want to thank Stephen Hesling, Brendan Ryan and John Mullen for their solidarity when times were tough. And I also want to thank my fellow Eccles councillors over the years, Lisa Stone, Peter Wheeler, Mike McCusker and Sharmina August for their support and comradeship. I hope that Eccles feels it's been well served by its Labour councillors and votes to return a full team of 3 in May, including Nathaniel Tete, who I am sure can replace me ably. In the spirit of reaching across the virtual aisle, I'd also like to thank Karen and Robin Garrido. Despite sometimes our all too obvious political differences, they made an effort to welcome me as a new councillor, never let our debates become personal, and were a pleasure to serve alongside on scrutiny. Finally, no councillor should ever forget who sends them here, who they are accountable to, and who they serve. So I offer every single councillor my sincere best wishes for the future in fulfilling their duties serving the people of our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeler. Now, can I call on Councillor Ronnie Wilson, please? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been thrown out twice this morning. Not physically, I hope. There is a problem with IT, and that is a national problem. It's the wrong time to discuss this, but for example, the messages which we use, in fact, goes on to anybody who is in the locality. My wife has been on twice when I've been on a meeting here in one room. She's on another meeting on Zoom or both Microsofts, and all the messages come up there. So beware anything you do put on. It does mean that it goes public, even without being asked for. I would first of all like to thank the staff, particularly this year. It's been a very, very trying time, and they've actually done their best, and I would say exceptionally good. It's been an honour and a privilege to have represented the people of Weaston Seedley in both in and outside of these chambers for 20 years. I came on the council in 1978 and then came back on in 2010. I started working for the Labour Party at 15 and joined the party when I was 16. At that time, I met my wife actually in politics. She was in Eccles Young Socialist, I was in Salford Young Socialist, and we had a joint meeting. And very soon, we found what we had a lot in common in more ways than others. I started, my faith in politics will be with me forever. It is said that Labour Party owes more to Methodism than to Karl Marx. Karl Marx is still has things to say which are still current. And I'd advise anybody who can get a chance to read the books, though that it's not very easy to get all of them nowadays because they are out of print. But I've got copies of them. Methodism, to give you a flavour, the Tolpuddle martyrs, 70% of those were Methodist local preachers like my wife. And it gives you a flavour of how most of us are, not all, because there are other people, obviously, who are not political. I want to pay tribute to those who taught and nurtured me in the party. Some will remember these wonderful saints: Joan Vines, Millie O'Varis, Laura Kelly, Winnie Kelly, and though Peter Kelly was extremely helpful, and many more excellent workers in the city. The highlight, of course, has been the year as Deputy Ceremonial Mayor. And the year as Ceremonial Mayor, it was a wonderful experience to see the city of Salford working to make city as great as it is. I'm happy to stand down, and in fact, in some circles, I was sitting down. In other words, I will be continuing and enjoy my retirement from the council, but continue in politics. As I said earlier, it has been quite easy for me. I do thank my wife, but she is very political, and in fact, is quite active. Are you still there?
Yeah, we're still there.
Oh, that's all right. No, it keeps going off on this end.
No, we're hanging on to every word, Ronnie.
I would ask you a favour for everyone here. Please respect and value each other, despite differences. We all have differences, even in a family. But we must respect each other for every member of the council, for those elected, and for wonderful people of Salford. And I hope that some of the things we have lost over the years, and when I came back on, it was a bit of it, well, though I
You're on mute, Ronnie.
You're on mute.
Ronnie, you're on mute.
It keeps going off. Right. I've contacted IT. They tell me that it's the machine itself, both iPad and laptop. Can you hear me now?
We can. Councillor Wilson, can I ask you, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but can you wind up now, please, for me?
Right. The highlight, of course, has been the year as Ceremonial Mayor. And the year as Ceremonial Mayor, it was a wonderful experience to see the city of Salford people working to make our city great. I'm happy to stand down and enjoy my retirement, but it will be a retirement from politics. would ask one favour, everyone. Please respect and value each other, and despite differences, for every member of the council is working for those who elected them, the wonderful people of Salford. Finally, I'm hoping that in the future we get back many things we lost when I came back on the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Windsor, for those wise words. Okay, I am mindful that we've taken a fair bit of time in this section, but I think it was worthy because we wanted to listen to the members. I've got one. I'm going to allow a couple of comments. I think the Councillor Turner, you wanted to speak. I'm assuming it was up to the issue of these councillors leaving.
Yes, I just thank you, Chair. I'd just like to agree with everything that Councillor Collinson said in her farewell speech. She has been an example to everyone, and to all those people that we all know outside that say do away with all councillors. I think she and others are a very good reason why we should not. So good luck, Gillian. Thank you for all you've done.
Okay. With that final comment, I'm going to move on now to item 7, which is rather self-serving, which is, can I ask Councillor David Jolliffe to be seconded by Councillor Michelle Barnes and supported by Councillors Karen Garrido, proposing a nomination for myself, Councillor John Mullen, to the office of Ceremonial Mayor for the municipal year of 2021-2022. Councillor Jolliffe.
Yeah, thank you, John. It gives me great pleasure to nominate yourself, Councillor John Mullen, to the office of Ceremonial Mayor of the City of Salford for the municipal year 2021-2022.
Thank you, Councillor Jolliffe. Councillor Barnes.
It also gives me great pleasure in seconding you as Ceremonial Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Garrido.
Yes, congratulations, and it gives me a great pleasure to support the nomination of yourself, Councillor Mullen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garrido. Okay, I'm now going to move on, which is, I think we've now got to do the item 8, nomination to the office of Deputy Ceremonial Mayor, which is, can I ask Councillor Heather Fletcher to be seconded by Councillor Jane Hamilton and supported by Councillor Karen Garrido to propose a nomination for Councillor Anne-Marie Humphreys to the office of Ceremonial Mayor for the municipal year. I think, is that Deputy? Yeah, Deputy Mayor for the municipal year of 2021-2022. So with that, can I ask Councillor Fletcher, please?
Yes. Yes, first of all, good morning, everybody, and happy St Patrick's Day. This is St Patrick's Day. It's not a green rosette. I'm still standing for Labour. Anyway, it gives me great pleasure to nominate my very good friend, Councillor Anne-Marie Humphreys, to the office of Deputy Ceremonial Mayor for the year 2021-2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Can I now call upon Councillor Jane Hamilton, please?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'm more than happy to move, second the nomination of Anne-Marie Humphreys for the Deputy Mayor for the municipal year of 21-22. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Karen Garrido.
I thought you'd forgotten me then, but never mind. Can I actually support these nominations for Anne-Marie, Councillor Anne-Marie Humphreys, to the Deputy Ceremonial Mayor? Thank you.
Thank you. Now, having both of these items with proposers and seconder, can I ask, first of all, does the council approve the nomination for the Ceremonial Mayor for 2021?
Approve.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And now can I ask again having a proposer and a seconder for the deputy ceremony mayor, can I ask that the council approve this item?
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, I'm now going to move on to item 9, appointment of an independent person. And can I ask the City Solicitor to present this report regarding the appointment of the independent person for Salford City Council, after which I will permit members to ask questions. Thank you. Sian, over to you, please.
Thank you, Chair. This report is recommending that the Council first notes the report and secondly approves the appointment of Caroline Wolfenden as independent person for Salford Council for an initial term of 4 years. Thirdly, to thank Ms Shazia Nazir as outgoing independent person for her commitment to the role and assistance to the current and former monitoring officers in considering allegations of breaches of the Code of Conduct for members. The Council is required under the Localism Act 2011 to appoint an independent person, so it's a legislative requirement. And the Act provides that the independent person is to be consulted by the Council before a decision is made on an allegation that it's decided to investigate in relation to a complaint that the City Mayor, elected or co-opted member, has failed to comply with our members' Code of Conduct. A second part to the role is that their views may also be sought on matters by members who are the subject of an allegation. And the third part of their role is that they would sit as part of a panel to advise full council should we be in a situation in relation to the dismissal of the head of paid service, monitoring officer or chief finance officer. And that again is a legislative requirement under regulations. That's a local authority standing order regulations of 2015. It's considered important to have more than one IP, and the Committee on Standards in Public Life recommended in their report in January 2019 on ethical standards in local government that there should be at least 2 IPs appointed by a council to provide resilience, etc. On the 18th of November 2020, full council approved the appointment of our Donna Allen as independent person. But we had at that point intended to appoint a second person, but were unable to at that point in time, having followed a recruitment and selection process. So following a further advertisement and recruitment process, as outlined in the report, the interview panel is now pleased to recommend to full council that we appoint Ms Caroline Wolfenden as our second independent person. Members will recall that at council on the 17th of July 2019, Ms Wolfenden was appointed for a period of 12 months. She has significant experience of working in local authority environments, currently being the Head of Corporate Policy and Performance and Standards at Rochdale Council. Amongst other things, her role requires her to have experience as an investigating manager, including chairing disciplinary hearings and making impartial judgments in relation to the course of action required. Members would also recall at the full council meeting on the 18th of November, when we couldn't recruit the second role, it was approved that Ms Wolfenden and Ms Shazia Nazir would continue in their roles as IPs until we made a second appointment for a further term of 4 years. So on behalf of full council, the Standards Committee would like to thank Ms Nazir as the outgoing independent person for her assistance provided to the current and former monitoring officers in considering allegations of the breaches of the Code of Conduct. And that concludes my report, Chair, unless there are any questions.
Thank you for that. Any questions? Any comments? Thank you. So the council is asked to approve the appointment of Miss Caroline Wolfenden as independent person for the City of Salford for an initial term of 4 years, together with the other recommendations detailed in this report. Do I have a proposer and a seconder?
Yeah, I'll propose that Councillor City Mayor, Councillor Walsh.
Thank you. Seconder?
I'll second that, Councillor Dawson.
Okay, Councillor Dawson, noted. Thank you. Okay, having a proposer and seconder, do council now approve this item?
Approve. Yes, approve.
Thank you for that. Okay, moving on. Item 10, appointment of electoral register officer, returning officer and associated electoral matters. Can I ask again the city solicitor to present this report regarding the appointment of electoral registration and returning officers for the forthcoming Salford City Council, Salford mayoral and Greater Manchester mayoral elections, after which I will again ask members to ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This report has 5 recommendations, the first being to appoint Tom Stannard, who is our Chief Executive, as the Electoral Registration Officer for Salford, to appoint Tom Stannard as a returning officer for the elections of councillors of the District of Salford and for elections of councillors of parishes within the district, although we don't have parish councils in Salford. And thirdly, to appoint Tom Stannard as a returning officer for the District of Salford for the election of the Greater Manchester Combined Authority Mayor, to delegate to the Chief Executive the power to appoint deputy electoral registration officers, and to delegate to the Chief Executive the power to make, where necessary, alterations to the designation of any polling station, polling place prior to the Council's next full review of polling districts and polling places, in consultation with relevant ward councillors, the City Mayor and group leaders, as well as the Chair of the Electoral Matters Committee. And I'd like to make it clear at this point that this is a temporary, this delegation is a temporary delegation intended to deal with the particular COVID crisis that we have at the moment, and I will outline that further in due course as I present my report, Chair. So the background to this matter is that the Council is required to make appointments to a number of statutory offices relating to the conduct of the electoral process. Individuals appointed have personal legal responsibilities in this role that are separate to their roles as council officers. Notwithstanding certain references in our constitution identifying certain of these posts as being associated with our chief executive, it's considered prudent that the appointment should be explicitly made to named officers rather than being taken to automatically attach to a particular officer within the authority. So this report seeking these decisions and delegations is really for absolute clarity in the forthcoming elections. So the requirement to appoint an ERO is set out in the Representation of the People Act and as specified in the report. In our constitution, the Electoral Matters Committee has delegated this power to appoint the ERO, but this does not prevent the council from making the appointment itself. And it was considered expedient due to time restrictions in organising the elections and the particular challenges going forward this year to make this appointment at council. It's to be noted that the officer appointed as our ERO will automatically, by virtue of section 28(1)(a) of the Representation of the People Act 83, be the acting returning officer for the elections of members of Parliament for Salford, Eccles, Worsley and Eccles South parliamentary constituencies. The report sets out also the legislative background to the appointment of a returning officer, and again it's either the Electoral Matters Committee or the council can make this appointment. As I've set out, there are no parish councils within the district of Salford, but that's just setting out what the legislation specifically says in the recommendation. Again, the officer appointed as our returning officer will automatically be our returning officer in relation to the local authority mayoral elections for the city mayor. In relation to the GMCA mayoral election, the administrative model adopted involves a returning officer, colloquially referred to as a local returning officer, at district level for each of the 10 GM authorities within the GMCA. and the combined authority returning officer is referred to as the CARO, overseeing the election on a Greater Manchester basis. The delegation for the Chief Executive in relation to the Deputy Electoral Registration Officers, whilst returning officers have the power to appoint their own deputies, the power to appoint deputy EROs rests with the Council under Section 52, subsection 2 of the Representation of the People Act. There are certain registration matters that should only be conducted by the ERO personally, or by their formally adopted deputies, such as registration hearings. So this is why it's important to have this made explicitly clear. So to assist the ERO with the effective conduct of their duties, it's proposed to appoint, to delegate this power to appoint deputy EROs to the Chief Executive. And finally, in relation to the delegation in relation to the designation of polling places, the Electoral Administration and Registration Act 2013 requires the Council to undertake a compulsory review of polling stations and polling districts and polling places every 5 years. And we can also undertake a discretionary interim review at other times. Also, in practice, any review of parliamentary polling districts and polling places, whether compulsory or interim, is likely to be accompanied by a review of the associated arrangements applying at local elections, and an appendix is attached with the report explaining various definitions. The Council's last review of polling election arrangements was in the summer and autumn of 2019. This review came about of polling districts to take into account some of the Council's ward boundaries arising from the last Local Government Boundary Commission electoral review for Salford. On occasion, and this is one of the main considerations for this specific delegation, it might be necessary to change a designated polling station outside of the statutory review process or timetable. This is really in an emergency situation. This occurs as a result of, for example, premises being unexpectedly closed or becoming unavailable, and that of course is a greater risk during this COVID pandemic. For example, a school may have to close due to an outbreak, or if an unscheduled or early poll takes place. So it's therefore proposed that this authority is delegated to the Chief Executive to make these necessary alterations for the forthcoming elections. And that concludes my report, unless there are any questions, Chair.
Thank you for that. Any questions? Any comments? Okay, thank you. So the Council is asked to approve the appointment of Tom Stannard as Electoral Registration Officer and Returning Officer of the forthcoming Salford City Council, Salford Mayoral and Greater Manchester mayoral elections, together with other recommendations which have been detailed in the report. Do I have a proposer?
Councillor Dawson. Yep.
Sorry, who was that?
Councillor Jones.
Yeah, and Councillor Dawson. Yep.
So Councillor Jones and Councillor Dawson seconded. Thank you. With that, with a proposer and a seconder, is this now agreed, please?
Agreed.
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 Thank you. I'm going to move on now to item 11, pay policy statement.
Right.
So can I ask Councillor Bill Hines, lead member for Financial Support Services, to present his report, after which I will permit questions.
Thank you, Chair. The council and the Salford Council has done over that time. And this includes our Grade 8 priorities, our values, our employment standards charters, as well as being an accredited living wage employer. And we're very proud of that because if you can remember, Chair, we were the first authority in Greater Manchester to become a real living wage employer, and many have benefited from it. And we also have aspirations, of course, to become a living wage city. So almost everything that we do now, we're pushing at the door to get employers to become accredited wage payers. The pay policy statement provides information on pay ratios to the highest and the lowest employee. For the fourth year, we are reporting our gender pay gap in line with the legislation. And gender pay, I'll say it again, is different to equal pay and is largely affected by the workforce composition. The mean and median gender pay gap have reduced over the last 12 months, which is a good thing. The City Council's mean gender pay gap is 11.3%. Now, this was 14.5% when we first reported in 2018. And the median pay gap is 13.3%, and this was 19.3% when we reported again in 2018. The UK national mean gender pay gap is 15.5%, and so Salford remains significantly lower than this. The gender pay gap report will be produced to provide further information about the Council's gender pay gap. And we've really worked exceedingly hard to improve that position. And some of the things that we have done is that a high number of women in our lower pay bands, particularly in catering and cleaning position, that does impact on the pay gap. But we're proud to say that we've kept those organisations in-house, whereas other authorities have farmed them out, so to say. So that does have a marked difference in when we look at the figures for the pay gap. But by the fact that we've kept it in-house, we see that people in working in those areas are 4.9% above the real living wage in many areas, and 19.1% upon the national living wage, which is very, very important. Average hourly pay for women in our lowest pay quartile has increased by 13.2% since our first report was published. A very, very good position to be in. Now we have more women in our upper quartile. 61% of the council senior leadership team are female. Again, a very, very good position, in my view, to be in. So therefore, you know, we intend to even go further as we open the doors for encourage more and more women in higher positions to to apply and have an opportunity to take these jobs. So I will stop there, Mayor and Chair, and answer any questions that need to be answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hines. Can I ask Councillor Garrido, please?
Thank you, Ceremonial Mayor. I would like to agree with all that Councillor Hines has said this morning in moving this statement. But in the time allowed, because I know we're really pressed now, I just want to raise one point in this excellent policy. And it is, it's great to see that the progress is being made on the section on the gender pay gap. We still have a way to go, but where we started from, we are definitely improving. The pay gap is down by 3.5% from last year's figures. And I'm delighted to see that we have now got 61% of our senior leadership team who are women, which means that if that figure is correct, and it is, that 7 out of our 10 top earners on this council are women. And we've heard from Councillor Hines this morning that we've actually raised the cost, the pay for our at the lowest band. So I'm delighted to hear that. And if I read it right, we are the first council to back #TechSheCan, which is amazing. I haven't looked at this because I'm not very good at hashtagging, but I will actually have a look at it. And I'd just like to say congratulations to all who were involved in putting this policy together. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garrido. City Mayor, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. First of all, can I congratulate Councillor Hines for bringing the pay policy statement for 21-22 to this full council, and also can I thank him for the progress that he's highlighted from when this was brought last year. Inevitably, when we're talking about pay and pay in local government, there is a inextricable link between pay and local government financing. Salford City Council, as colleagues know, has led the way in terms of becoming the first local authority to become an accredited living wage employer in Greater Manchester. As part of that accreditation, it's incumbent upon the City Council to encourage its supply chain to also pay the real living wage and become accredited with the Living Wage Foundation. I say that because when you look at local government, you know, over the last few years, really, it is a really challenging environment within which pay for local government workers actually sits. You know, I'm thinking about the privatisation agenda of the Thatcher years of government, the hollowing out we saw under New Labour in terms of new public management and this notion of supposedly private sector efficiency. And then obviously more recently over the last 10 to 11 years of austerity, which has seen this City Council lose £222 million in cuts to something called the Revenue Support Grant and unfunded budget pressures. Inevitably, that financial environment creates huge challenges with regards to pay and pay policies in councils up and down the country. And importantly, I think for me, it creates real challenges for our supply chain. Colleagues will know one of the things that we want to do desperately is pay all of our care workers in the city of Salford the real living wage. But given the financial pressures, the uncertainty in the future, and obviously the last 10, 11 years of government austerity, that continues to remain challenging as we deliver care services in this city through contracts. Having said that, as Councillor Garrido's highlighted, you know, 61% of the senior leadership team are women. That is a fantastic achievement for the city. TechSheCan is a new initiative working through HOST, the Homes of Skills and Technology, down at the Media City UK, and that is very much linked to our digital inclusion agenda here in the city, trying to encourage innovation, entrepreneurialism, and tackling digital exclusion in our city. Colleagues will also know that when central government calculates revenue support grants, there's no relationship with pay awards in local government, again creating more budget pressures for local authorities up and down the country. So I guess all I'm saying is we've made great progress here, and it's great to see that. But if we're serious about making further progress, we need to get serious about local government financing and properly funding local authorities so we can properly demonstrate progressive employment standards and pay, not only in the people we directly employ, but importantly in the supply chains across our great city. I'm really proud, as Councillor Hines has said, about directly employing cleaners. And, you know, I'm also really proud about, you know, our aspirations around insourcing. Green Book terms and conditions are one of the best antidotes, in my opinion, to tackling poverty and inequality in our city. But what we need to do is continue to lobby and campaign for a fair settlement from central government to enable us and allow us to do even more on this agenda in Salford and across Greater Manchester. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, City Mayor. Okay, not got any more questions, so I'm going to say Councillor is asked to approve the content of the pay policy statement for 2021. Councillor Hines has proposed the statement. Can I have a seconder, please?
Yes, I'll second it, Chair. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. With that, can I ask the council to agree this policy?
Agreed.
Agreed. Aye.
Thank you, councillors. Moving on, item 12 is the Places for Everyone, a proposed joint development for Greater Manchester. Can I now ask Councillor John Merry, as Deputy Mayor with responsibility for planning and sustainable sustainable development matters to present this report, the details of which proposals the process for the creation of a joint development plan for Greater Manchester, after which I will permit questions. Councillor Merry.
Yeah, I still stumble over the title as well, John. Don't worry about it. So, in moving this, can I make it clear that this is not about the spatial development framework? Rather, it is about the method of which we deliver that spatial development framework. And in order to explain why this slightly technical proposal is in front of you, I need to just go back in a little bit into history. We had a framework that was supported by all 10 authorities. Unfortunately, at the last minute, the Stockport Council, and a decision which I think lacks common sense, but I have to respect, has decided not to participate in the spatial framework. That leaves us with 8 Labour authorities and 1 Conservative authority, all of which wish to actually proceed with this particular framework. And they will do so for some very simple reasons. They do so because not to have it, I think, leaves us exposed to the whim of developers who can move anything they like without reference to a particular framework. They are doing so because inevitably the government has sought to increase the number of houses that we need to provide in Greater Manchester. That's a decision they've taken as a result of reducing the allocations in the south of England. It says something about their commitment to the north, that what they want to do is to reduce housing in the south and increase pressure on northern authorities. But the reality of the situation is that with Stockport having withdrawn, unfortunately, we are going to need a new structure to actually take these proposals through. And again, I want to stress to the opposition and elsewhere, this is not about talking about the merits or otherwise of the various plans that will come forward. There will be plenty of time to do that. What we're talking about is the actual mechanism, how this is actually going to be done. And given Stockport's withdrawal, it has to be a committee of the 9 local authorities that are continuing with that. And that is the proposal that's in front of us. And with that, I'm happy to take questions or indeed reply to any comments. But I would urge you to confine yourselves to the actual mechanism proposed rather than discussing what is going to be in that particular plan, because if we do that, we're going to be here till 3 o'clock this afternoon. And, you know, we are here to discuss a particular proposal that is about safeguarding, I believe, the people of Greater Manchester, safeguarding them against developers just being able to come along without having reference to any sort of framework, safeguarding the people of this city against people just driving a coach and horses through all sorts of local plans, and I believe that this is the right way forward to take these issues forward and to have a proper debate and to make this decisions that we're talking about democratically accountable rather than being made by central government.
Thank you, Councillor Mara. Councillor Greedo has indicated.
Thank you. Sorry, Ceremony Mayor, I couldn't unmute then. I'm quite sad today because I had hoped that this council would have acted bravely like Stockport has done and withdrawn from this joint development plan. The reason being, we should want the best deal, as been stated, not for Greater Manchester, but for Salford. I accept that we're in Greater Manchester. I'm not happy about it, but we're there. But I think our main point and our main focus should be the best deal for Salford, which we feel this plan will not do. We are quite able and qualified to actually put together our own development plan. We've done it in the past. We've been proved that we can do it in the past. And I know Councillor Mary doesn't want us to talk about what is happening with items that are involved in this summary. But can I say in the executive summary, it says and it states, it is intended that the process for the place of everyone joint development plan can resume from the point that the Greater Manchester Spatial Framework had reached. This was when there was 10 authorities. So figures I would have thought are going to be different and will have changed if there are only 9 councils. And I've only time, and I know he's mentioned it about the housing, but on the Greater Manchester Spatial Framework, it stated that Salford would need 28,560 dwellings. But this figure, according to Salford's figures, is 6,000 above what we need. In Salford, we needed 22,848. This will result, if this plan goes through, to Salford providing 16% of the total new housing across Greater Manchester. That cannot and should not be right. And coupled with that, when Andy Burnham was elected, he said he abolished the last development plan and promised to save our green belts. We have waited all this time for this Greater Manchester Spatial Framework, and it still isn't here. If we are going to have to provide in this new document 6,000 more houses, where are those going to be built? And that's the question. Where are these going to be built if we have to find space for 6 more houses? I don't trust this development plan. I'm sorry to say I don't trust Greater Manchester. We are the only ones best placed to decide what is best for this great city of Salford. And I will be voting against this today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greedo. Councillor Antrobus. Councillor Antrobus.
Sorry, thank you, Ceremonial Mayor. I just wanted to come in because I think that some of the points that Councillor Mrs. Greedo has made have been misleading. Suggest that you know, somehow suddenly there are 6,000 more homes that we have to find space for. The reason that the actual figure for the number of homes in Salford is higher than the need is because of our capacity to accommodate high-rise apartments because of our location at the centre of the conurbation. If we were to reduce the figure, that would simply mean that there would be fewer high-rise flats and maybe not meet the demand for those amongst a certain section of the population. It would actually make no difference to the amount of land that was needed. It would make no difference to the number of family homes which would need to be built in other parts of the city. And all it would do is actually to put pressure on green spaces throughout Greater Manchester, which is exactly the opposite of what anybody wants to achieve. So if we were to follow the illogic of Councillor Mrs. Garrido, who presumably is speaking for the Conservative Party, what they are pleading for is to put green belt and green spaces under greater pressure.
Thank you, Councillor Antrobus. Councillor Robbie Garrido.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a very brief comment. I think the one that's being misleading here, Chair, is not Councillor Karen Garrido, it's Councillor Derek Antrobus. The report that came to this council in November said very clearly that Salford Council disputed the figures of 6,000 extra houses and were not happy with what Greater Manchester had come up with. And now Councillor Antrobus is trying to say, oh, well, yeah, we accept these 6,000 houses, but of course, you know, you're actually saying that it'll have to be built on green belt house. No, we don't need these 6,000 houses. This council said we do not need these 6,000 houses, and therefore this plan is not fit for purpose as far as Salford is concerned, and therefore we must vote against it and we must do our own plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Goulden.
I must agree with both the Garridos, actually. I think from day one the plan's been flawed, and it's something that's obviously from Earl and Cadishead's point of view, we have to pick up, you know, something in the region of, I think it started off at 2,500. It might have been reduced to 1,400 homes here on Greenbelt. I just don't see the point in it. And like I say, it's the people of Earlham and Cadishead and Peel Green that will have to pay for this. And we keep doing this all the time. We keep talking about, you know, the thing was going to get kicked out because all 10 had to agree, then 9. What happens if another council drops out? What happens then? You know, so we seem to be picking up the pieces. So I will definitely be voting against this motion today.
Thank you. Before I carry on with speakers, just want to remind members that this is not a document for voting on. It is simply for noting. So with that, can I ask Councillor McCusker, please?
Yeah, Chair. I was just going to come back on that point that this is for noting. The decision to join the joint committee has already been made by Cabinet. Council will have the opportunity, once that joint committee commends the plan to the 9 districts, to the Cabinet and Executive to approve the plan, and then each full council will have an opportunity. So I just feel this is a debate we're going to have in the future anyway, so I vote we move on.
Okay, I've got a move. I think I'm just going to check this with Councillor Sean. I think the member there just asked move progress. Is that correct? Can I now do that? Because it does appear to be turning into an extended debate, and it is simply a paper to note.
I've got a right to reply at some point, but yes.
Chair, I've indicated to comment in the chat as well.
Okay, so Sean first and then City Mayor.
Yes, it's a matter for you, Chair, at what point you feel it's appropriate to move this matter on. But I'm having problems with the chat. I need to sort of make people aware that I can't see the messages coming in. It's only my messages going out.
Okay, yeah, I can see your messages.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Chair.
Yeah.
Somebody actually moved progress. So there is a resolution there to move progress. That needs to be seconded and the council needs to vote on that. That's the first thing.
Yeah, noted. And I was just getting to that point, Councillor.
I want to hear the comments of the City Mayor.
I have got the move progress before me.
Okay, it's Article 16.1, motions without notice at council. A motion can be moved to sorry.
Chair, I did put in the chat, and you did say noted when I asked to comment on this. And as far as I'm aware, the move progress came after you noted my request to speak.
That is correct.
I'm seconding the notice, the progress vote, Chair. And it doesn't matter when anybody puts anything in the chat. If a notice for progress has been moved, it has to be taken.
It's Rule 16.1 G. Is the message in the chat to go to the next business?
Chair,
no,
sorry, it's to put the question.
Councillor McCusker.
So it's question. Sorry, it's section H to put the question immediately to a vote. Is that what's been put in the group chat?
Can't be moved to a vote, Chair, because this is an item for noting.
Yeah, no, it's not to vote on the item. It's to vote to move progress. I take no more further comments and go straight to Councillor Mayor to close the
Chair,
item.
Can I ask if that's in order, because I'm not sure that Councillor McIntyre intended to move progress in order to gag the City Mayor. It's obviously being used by the opposition as an attempt not to hear the City Mayor, and I want to hear the City Mayor.
Okay, I'm going to get this sorted now. Councillor McCusker, for clarity, is your position to move straight to the end of the item?
No, Chair.
Right, fine. With that, I'm going to move on to City Mayor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Obviously, I've listened intently to the comments made, and I think I'd like to draw members of the council's attention to the fact that what this paper discusses is not the joint development plan document itself, but the process for getting to the joint development plan document of the 9 local authorities in Greater Manchester. They are two very different things. So many of the comments made at council today concern the joint development plan document, and what is before council today is not the joint development plan document, but the process that the plan of the 9 seeks to follow to deliver on that. What I would also like to do is just respond to some of the comments made around being part of Greater Manchester. Colleagues will be aware that we have devolution in Greater Manchester, and we have a Greater Manchester combined authority. Colleagues will also be aware that it was a Conservative government, and also George Osborne MP at the time, that requested the establishment, if you like, of combined authorities with directly elected mayors to allow devolution to take place within Greater Manchester. So I find it interesting that the opposition oppose being part of Greater Manchester arrangements when it was clearly an invention of the Conservative government at the time, wanting to bestow on us here in Greater Manchester directly elected mayors to be able to attract devolution. However, having said that, strategic planning within Greater Manchester is really important for a number of reasons. Councillor Merry's already highlighted that the government operate a national methodology for calculating local housing need. And he also highlighted that government have yet again been meddling with that methodology to give the City of Manchester a further 35% increase in the housing numbers they need to do here in Greater Manchester to build over the period of the plan. But importantly, we are, in a sense, one city regional economic area. And as a consequence of that, collaboration and partnership, I would argue, is absolutely critical. It's absolutely critical if we're to lobby and influence a national government at the moment that's pursuing a centralised agenda where decisions very much are made in Westminster and Whitehall. It's absolutely critical we collaborate around our infrastructure needs as a city region. It's absolutely critical we collaborate to deliver truly affordable homes across Greater Manchester to tackle the housing and homelessness crisis. It's absolutely critical we collaborate to deliver carbon neutrality by 2038 and net zero carbon homes from 2028. And as Councillor Merry has highlighted, it's absolutely critical that we collaborate to mitigate development by appeal, which could cost any of the 9 local authorities a fortune fighting developers in the courts. And also it mitigates against development happening anywhere within our city region. And then finally, it's absolutely critical we collaborate in a global economy to attract investment and to ensure that we have a proper, robust strategy around trade and development moving forward. It is for all of those reasons that a strategic development plan of the 9 is absolutely critical in serving the interests of the people of Salford and the interests of the people of Greater Manchester. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, City Mayor. Councillor Wise Turner, please.
Thank you. Are we still on the notice to note the development plan?
Yes, we are, Councillor.
Because I've almost lost the will here. The City Mayor's gone on at great length. I don't quite know why. From my point of view, yes, I agree with Councillor Garrido that the Stockport way is the right way, but it is for noting, and the main concern is, for me, and I think most members, is that it comes back to Council for any of the decisions, because it seems to me the decision has been taken. So I'm not going to take any more valuable time, but I thank you for letting me have a comment.
You're welcome, Councillor. I'm going to now pass this item back to Councillor Merry to close off before I move to vote to note the item.
Okay. Well, I've found this debate almost surreal at times, quite frankly, and I think basically the City Mayor put his finger on some of the weaknesses in the Tory case. I'll just deal with Councillor Karen Garrido, who's somebody I normally have a great deal of respect for, but I'm afraid she's wrong in a number of significant aspects about what she's talking about. The problem is, I mean, basically that what she said is that she doesn't want to have anything to do with Greater Manchester. She doesn't think that they should be involved in anything in terms of Salford. So I look forward to her not supporting the campaign the Conservatives are mounting for the mayor of Greater Manchester, which presumably she thinks is a waste of time and isn't a campaign that she would support. So I'm quite pleased about that, actually. I think that will hamper the Tories' efforts to win Greater Manchester, and I'm sure her comments have been picked up. I also am a little upset when she talks about courage. Because if I'd like to speak a few words on behalf of the Conservative leader of Bolton, presumably she thinks that he should have the courage to actually reject the proposals as well as one of the 9 who are actually supporting it. Can I remind you that it's both Labour and Conservative councils that are supporting this particular way forward? What I feared was going to happen is exactly what has happened by a series of speeches which has nothing to do with what we're actually asking people to note in this particular report. What we're asking them to note is the arrangements for considering the spatial framework. That's been widely ignored by the people who have spoken on it, with the exception of Councillor Antrobus and the City Mayor. This is a proposal about putting forward an ad hoc committee that is going to administer this particular plan. There will be opportunities to debate and argue the plan. I am sure that that will come up. But the reality of the situation I am now finding myself pointing out is an unholy alliance between the Conservative Party and developers. Councillor Garrido, the 2 Councillor Garridos have had a good record in the past of fighting untrammeled development. Right now, they want to give up one of the weapons in our armoury to say, no, we trust developers to come forward with plans and we can deal with it in other ways. I'm sorry, I don't have faith in this government to deliver on opposition to developers. I don't have faith that we can rely on their goodwill. And if we do not have a plan across the whole of Greater Manchester, I think we'll be picked off one by one. So I urge you to support the noting of this particular proposal, to take it forward, and let's have a proper debate about the merits otherwise of the proposals at a later stage.
Thank you, Councillor Murrah. Do I have a proposal for noting this?
I'll move that.
And a seconder?
Seconded by Councillor Walsh.
Thank you. And with that, can I ask?
Sorry, Maureen, I've just switched me.
Sorry, Councillor Jolly, can you turn your mic off, please? Yeah. Can I ask Council to agree to note this report? Thank you.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Against.
Against.
Agreed.
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 Against.
Agreed.
No. Agreed.
No.
Agreed.
Okay, I'm kind of a bit confused by all the agrees and not agrees. I'm not so sure of a quick way to resolve this. I'm going to guess.
I've added them all up, John. It was agreed.
Yeah, I've counted all the Labour votes and they all agreed.
I was going to say, do you want a roll call on this?
No.
Yes.
No.
No.
Just
No.
Labour to say yes.
Can I just ask Sean
No.
to give a bit of direction here?
No.
I believe it was passed because obviously I believe that the Labour are in majority and are in attendance, but and I'm keen to kind of move on. But your advice, please, Sean.
Thank you. If the matter's unclear, I would suggest a recorded vote under Procedure Rule 19.4. If 3 members present at the meeting demand it, the names of those for and against the motion or the voting, sorry, the names for and against the motion or amendment, it can be taken down in writing and entered into the minutes. That's in relation to a notice of motion, but I would suggest if a decision's unclear, then that we have a recorded vote.
As Labour, I think it is more than clear. All the Labour supporters are for.
It's a matter for your discretion, Councillor.
Chair, could I just ask for clarification from the city monitoring officer? This report is up to be noted. So the consequence of having a vote or not having a vote would mean that it's either noted or it's not noted. But the decision is a cabinet decision which has already been made. So I don't understand why it's going to a vote.
As I've indicated, the matter is being noted, but strictly speaking, you would have a decision on whether or not the council wishes to note it or not. So strictly speaking, there is a vote on it.
Okay, Mike, Ralph, quickly, please.
I was just as a compromise to expedite the matter and rather having a roll call vote. Would it be acceptable if it recorded the minutes that it was agreed and the Conservative group were all in opposition?
Move that action.
Move that.
Yeah, agreed.
Move that.
Second that.
On here as well, Rod.
Okay.
Agree. No, you've got other people wishing to abstain, and you've got the independent who disagreed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I noted that, Councillor Golden. You made that quite clear in your speech, and I think we've only got Councillor Nelson who's abstaining. So with that, I'm going to say that the item was noted. I'm going to move on to item 13.
Chair,
Yes.
Can we at least note who abstained and the fact that the independent also voted against?
Councillor, I already said that, so yes.
So just for clarification, I will record the motion. The report was noted. All the Conservative members present were in opposition to it, and both Councillors Goulden and Nelson abstained. Is that correct?
Councillor Goulden was against.
Against.
Councillor Nelson abstained.
Okay.
I also abstained.
Was that Councillor Wilson?
It is.
Thank you for that clarity. Okay, moving on to item 13. It's a notice of motion. It's on the cladding on buildings. And can I ask Councillor Anne-Marie Humphreys to propose this motion, which will then be seconded by the City Mayor, after which I will permit members to ask questions.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to propose the motion as laid out before you. As it is such a comprehensive motion, I would like to pay particular attention to the following points. It is a scandal that thousands of Salford residents are still living in unsafe buildings, and that number continues to rise. While the government have dithered and delayed on addressing the crisis, the Treasury has actually benefited from the costs charged to residents. The government's own assessment of Waking Watch that costs residents £137 a month, the Treasury is actually taking £23 off this. For every £100 increase in insurance, the Treasury is taking £12 in insurance premiums tax. All this with insurance costs ever spiralling for the residents. These same residents will soon be faced with tens of thousands of pounds more to remedy the fire defects. That the government has provided no funding to correct the fire safety defects not related to cladding systems or in buildings less than 18 metres in height. The £15 billion expected costs of remediations, as highlighted by the Homes, Communities and Local Government Committee last year, is almost 3 times the £5 billion designated to recite the industrial and regulatory crisis so far. All of this is against the backdrop of the City Council's overall core budget being reduced by 53% since 2010-11, reducing the City Council's spending power and forcing local councils to raise council tax precepts in order to maintain vital services such as enforcing building regulations. We support the ongoing work of the Greater Manchester High Rise Task Force, chaired by the Mayor of Salford, and the work of the End Our Cladding campaign. This has brought together local campaigns including Manchester Gladiators and the proposed the 10-step action plan to support the residents in Salford across this regulatory crisis. This needs to be done swiftly and comprehensively across England to make all buildings safe, regardless of their height or safety defects, so that Salford residents can have the peace of mind they are entitled to and deserve. Thank you. I move.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. City Mayor, please. Second.
Thank you, Chair. Can I second the motion and reserve the right to speak in the debate?
Thank you, City Mayor. I have got Councillor Robin Greedo to speak. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. If we were meeting in person this morning, the first thing I would have done would be to present a prize to the mover and seconder of this motion for producing the most long-winded motion ever to be presented to this council. Turning to the motion, the very first paragraph uncovers the pure hypocrisy of the mover and seconder, where they talk of nearly 4 years since Grenfell and refer to the suffering of thousands of Salford residents and private leaseholders. But they've avoided mentioning the tenants of the ill-fated Pendleton Together PFI. Why? Because hand in hand with Pendleton Together, they have dillied and dallied for nearly 4 years with our former blocks and tenants in Pendleton, which they set up as a PFI and which has proved disastrous for thousands of our residents. But of course, for these tenants, it's not just been 4 years, it's been 7 years because of the upheaval in carrying out the so-called upgrading. Let us not forget that this is a city, a tale of two cities, because the west of the city, Forviva, has had all cladding removed and replaced, and in addition, sprinklers installed in every flat. So clearly, it was and is possible to achieve. The City Mayor is trying to distract us from investigating the problems caused to our own tenants, but they will not be distracted because over 200 tenants have now resorted to legal action. So, this is our caring City Mayor, who together with the proposal of this motion are just trying to cover up their own failings by attacking the government. When I read this motion, the phrase, people living in glass houses should not throw stones, comes to mind. Turning now to the horrific plight of the private leaseholders, We understand the pressures these residents are under. But what this motion does not say is the considerable help which the government has already given to remove unsafe cladding, and more is being given. So don't listen to the proposer of this motion, who tries to poo-poo the amount of money that's been given. Just a few days ago, on the 10th of February, the government announced a comprehensive plan to remove unsafe cladding from buildings and support private leaseholders. They announced an unprecedented £5 billion of investments in building safety, including a further £3.5 billion to pay for the removal of cladding to protect leaseholders in high-rise apartments over 18 metres high from having to foot the bill, and ensuring that the developers pay its fair share. This is on top of the £600 million to remove the ACM cladding, as was found on Grenfell. And the government has already established a £1 billion building safety fund to remove older forms of cladding on flats over 18 metres. This is action, not rhetoric. New protections are also being given.
Councillor, I've got a point of information from the City Mayor.
Thanks, Chair. Just on a point of information, Councillor Robin Garrido informed Council and members of the public that the motion doesn't reference the government support. That is factually incorrect. Councillor Garrido will appreciate at 1.4 we reference the £5 billion designated to the industrial and regulatory crisis, whilst also noting that the Communities and Local Government Select Committee have estimated the cost for remediation and works required to be at £15 billion. So I'm just correcting the record, because the motion does notice the information in terms of government support of £5 billion.
Thank you for that clarity, City Mayor. Councillor Garrido, continue on.
Thank you. I hope our time was stopped while that runs on. In fact, 1.4 doesn't set out the whole picture. And in fact, when this motion was actually submitted to the Agenda Committee for approval, in fact, the announcement hadn't been made because it was only made on the 10th of February. So let's be clear about it. This is money which has been announced since this motion was framed. New protection is also being given to leaseholders in low and medium-rise flats with lower safety risks. This scheme will pay for the removal of cladding where it is needed for a long-term, low-interest, government-backed financing arrangement. Under the scheme, no leaseholder will ever pay more than £50 a month towards the removal of cladding. A new gateway level will also be imposed on developers, raising over £2 billion to help pay for cladding removal costs. That's not in the motion either. And finally, Chair, because leaseholders have been unable even to sell or remortgage their defective properties because of a broken EWS1 process and mortgage lenders' unwillingness to lend on them, the government are introducing the new £30 million Waking Watch Relief Fund, which will pay for the installation of fire alarm systems in high-rise buildings with cladding removal, or reduce the need for costly interim safety measures such as Waking Watch. So, more pressure lifted for private leaseholders.
Councillor, can I ask you to wind up, please?
I can, yes. So, Chair, instead of empty political rhetoric from Labour, we have considerable financial support from the government. We accept this may not cover everything, but we must not let developers off the hook. And as I've said previously, we must do whatever we can to make developers face up to their responsibilities. It is because that over half of this motion concentrates on pure political rhetoric instead of recognising enormous help already given or announced by the government and concentrating on forcing developers to set their responsibilities.
Can I ask you to finish now, please?
I'm finishing now. That we cannot vote for this motion, and we will not, however, not vote against it. But rather, we welcome the support that the government has given, and will support any discussions with developers to get them to stand up to their responsibilities. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dickman.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to just give thanks to the End Our Cladding Scandal campaign and the Manchester Gladiators for their continued work to support residents and lobby the government during this crisis. But listening today to the hypocrisy of Councillor Garrido attacking this Labour Council for not sorting the Pendleton blocks out sooner, when he knows full well that this Labour Council, within weeks of the Grenfell tragedy, sourced the funding to make the blocks safe, only to be prevented for years by his Conservative government in allowing this funding to be used. Thankfully, the work on those blocks has started and they'll soon be made safe for residents. But unfortunately, that cannot be said of the private tower blocks across Salford, where thousands of residents live in unsafe homes with serious fire defects that they are not responsible for. These residents are young and old, families and couples, retirees and key workers living in unsafe buildings with a failed EWS1 process and unable to sell their homes. But the government continue to fail to rectify this scandal and make their homes safe. The Conservatives will say that the government has set up the Building Safety Fund, which Councillor Garrido has said as well, to help leaseholders and residents, allocating £1.6 billion and more recently £5 billion to help fix the crisis. But whilst that sounds like a lot of money, the Building Safety Fund doesn't provide for tower blocks with fire safety defects other than flammable cladding or blocks less than 18 metres, with the estimated amount needed to fix this crisis closer to 15 billion. During the pandemic, the government said that the safety of our people should be our primary concern. But 4 years on from Grenfell, this couldn't be further from the truth for the thousands of residents still living in unsafe blocks across our city. The government have a responsibility to end this cladding scandal by forward funding the work and to reclaim the costs from those responsible or through a future development levy. And there's a responsibility for all those here today to support this motion, support our residents here in Salford and work together to finally end the scandal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dickman. Councillor Garrido, can I ask you to turn your camera off, please? Thank you. Next up, I've got Councillor Merry.
I regret Councillor Garrido turning his camera off because I was quite enjoying the sight of him drinking his espresso coffee, actually. So by all means, let him keep it on. I just want to deal with some of the appalling misstatement of fact that Councillor Garrido perpetuated in terms of his particular comments. And I'm afraid I'm going to have to concentrate on Pendleton beyond, as well as saying that I support the whole of this motion. But in the time available, I'm going to have to expose the Conservative Party for what they are, which is basically being totally hypocritical, weeping crocodile tears over the situation in Pendleton, whilst at the same time it was their government that perpetuated their particular problem. If you remember, we passed at a special council a resolution authorising the council to loan the necessary money to deal with the cladding. Then the government stepped in, and after months and months of dithering, including a long discussion with the Treasury, they decided that not only could we not lend the money to Pendleton, but they were going to forbid us from lending the money and forbid us from having access to government funds. And the only suggestion that the Tories came up with, the Tory government, was, well, why don't you just bankrupt the providers and start again? That was how much they cared about the tenants in Pendleton. They cared more about what they regarded as the integrity of the PFI scheme than actually doing anything to help. And now we have Councillor Garrido and the nerve of the man claiming that the Tories have cared about the actual tenants in Pendleton. And just to correct him, I'm afraid, his figure of 200 tenants who have taken legal action against the council, we have not received 200 notices of action. That figure he has obtained from a commercial company that has gone round those particular blocks, urging people to sign up on a no-win, no-fee basis. And their argument...
Points of information, Chair.
Well, where did you get the information from, Councillor Garrido?
I'm not speaking to you, I'm speaking to the Chair of the Council. Point of information, Chair.
Quick, go on, Councillor Garrido. Is it regarding where you got the information from?
Yes, it's regarding the particular accusation that Councillor Merry has just made. This information was provided by the tenants at Pendleton Together. And yes, I've been involved for 3 years now with the tenants, so I do know what they're talking about, and I have been supporting them.
Yeah, the information was provided by a tenant who is involved in the attempt to sign up tenants on a no-win, no-fee basis by a commercial company, and I'll repeat that, by a commercial company which sees an opportunity of making some quick cash out of the tenants. And we have not received 200 claims. So your claim was incorrect, Councillor Garrido, and I would hope that you would then withdraw that particular claim. The reality of the situation is, and yes, thank you for the advice not to discuss the legal claim. I'm not going to discuss the merits of the claims or otherwise, but the reality of the situation is it's a no-win, no-fee company. As part of their literature, they have said, what have you got to lose in terms of signing up? So we are going to do our best to meet the needs and concerns of those tenants. We've done our best. We've supported the company raising the money on the open market without a single penny coming from the Tory government. And the reality of the situation that we find ourselves in now is that we are actually actively engaged in taking the cladding off. The council is paying for sprinklers to be
Can you wound up, Councillor Merry, please?
Yeah, installed in the blocks. And Councillor Garrido has made a series of false claims that he should apologise for.
Thank you, Councillor Merra. I believe that it's Councillor Gina Reynolds next to speak.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I want to comment on what Councillor Robin Garrido said as well, because I've seen firsthand, there's no doubt about it, the impact on people's mental health of those people living in the 9 blocks affected in Pendleton. You know, the fear and anxiety has been unbelievable. But for him to say that we have not done anything for those residents, you know, we were the first local authority in the UK to actually take down the first 3 floors, the cladding, and put on the cement blocks on those blocks. And, you know, we've put in the 24-hour fire marshals straight away, audible alarms and robust fire doors. And we conducted safe and well visits for all those residents. The MP, Rebecca Long-Bailey, myself and my fellow ward councillors all held surgeries, separate surgeries on all those blocks. And supported residents. So for him to say that we've done nothing is absolutely outrageous. And I was going to mention about the funding, the difficulties. We didn't manage to find a vehicle for funding or for the government to approve PTOL's funding arrangements of the 25 million for the reasons that Councillor Merry said, that we weren't allowed to borrow the money. And it took the government till June 2020 to approve those funding arrangements, which is an absolute disgrace. So I just want to put those points forward, and I will be supporting this motion because I know that those leaseholders are suffering the same and the impact it's having on their mental health. They're paying the price for living in buildings with fire safety defects and flammable cladding through no fault of their own. You know, the government should accept responsibility and the recommendations from HCLG, the Select Committee, the sector bodies and MPs of all parties to end this cladding scandal. And on that basis, I will be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Next up, I've got Councillor Saunders, please.
Hi, thanks, Chair. First of all, as I mentioned right at the beginning, unfortunately, due to a funeral, I do have to leave absolute maximum in 10 minutes. So, A, I'm going to be very quick. B, if the vote has not been taken yet before I leave, can I record in advance that I wish to abstain? Anyway, I just want to say, further to what my colleague Councillor Robin Garrido said about it being a long-winded motion, it's actually more than long-winded. It's a bit of a dog's breakfast. Looks as if it's been put together, despite its length, if I may say so, on the back of a, can I use the word fag pack, or whatever the modern equivalent would be. I've made a list of stakeholders, to use a modern word, that are referenced in this motion: house builders, developers, residents, leaseholders, the government, and, would you believe, house builders and house builders who are negligent. And one of the things that it calls upon is for house builders who were negligent to make reparations. Doesn't say anything about house builders who were not negligent, nor does it say how one differentiates between builders who are negligent and not negligent. That's all I want to say, and as I've said, I wish to record that I'm going to abstain.
Thank you, Councillor Saunders. I've got Councillor McIntyre next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no hesitation in supporting this very detailed report motion. There's just a point I'd like to bring to your attention. We're talking about pounds, pens and everything else, but we are maybe overlooking or sideswiping the fact that there's people involved here. And part of the motion, a large part of the motion reflects on the mental health problems that it might be causing those people that are experiencing the problem of being unfortunate at living and have made a choice to buy these properties. Can I just make 3 references to psychiatric conditions? One is anxiety, one is depression, and the other one is obsessive compulsive disorder. Now, if we were all to think about being hyper alert 24 hours a day, you can maybe imagine what those poor people are experiencing. Could I also say that when it comes to disability, if you shut your eyes and imagine that you smell smoke, if you live from the 4th floor up to what might be 12th, 13th floor, you can smell smoke, but you are sharing with 120 people on one stairwell, and you have one person going in the block of flats, there might be 6 or 8 blocks of flats, telling you there's a fire. How do you feel? How do you manage to use stairs that would help you escape from that burning smoke? And what sort of mental health conditions are the present circumstances of residents going to be exaggerated because of the physical malfunction of these properties? Now, it is, as I said, a very important motion, and for that reason, I would have no hesitation in saying I agree with it, and please help us and help the residents get something sorted out quick. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McIntyre. Councillor Kamel. Councillor Kamel, you're muted.
Thank you. Sorry, I just had to answer the door. I was running back up the stairs with my laptop. Thank you. So yeah, Councillor Garrido said that it's been 4 years since Grenfell, and was insinuating that it's Salford Council's fault that the residents in Pendleton have not had their cladding fixed. I don't wish to repeat the arguments that Councillor Merry and Reynolds made in answer to that, or the comments in the interest of time about mental health from Councillor Reynolds and McIntyre, but I fully support what they've just said. Councillor Garrido seems happy that residents pay £50 a month if they're leaseholders to fix the cladding through no fault of their own. Last month they were opposing a much smaller increase in council tax for residents, part of which was to fund adult social care, which the government forced upon the council. And now he's happy for residents to pay £50 a month to have cladding fixed. That's not their fault at all, which I'm bemused. He's also said that he and the rest of the Tories will be abstaining. Councillor Collison said in her retirement speech that she would have liked to have been involved in more cross-party working. And I think here is an opportunity for Councillor Collinson and her colleagues to back up those words and I would urge the Salford Tories to support this motion for the benefit of the residents of Salford who have been impacted by this cladding scandal. And I will be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kamal. City Mayor, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks for bringing me in on this debate. I did note in Councillor Collinson's speech that she referred to herself as a councillor, and reminding us all that we're councillors and not politicians. And I have to say, in debating this motion, all I've seen from opposition members is politics. So make of that what you will. Can I also thank Councillor McIntyre for reminding us that this is all about people and the circumstances they find themselves in. I am deeply disappointed that Councillor Robin Garrido, obviously earlier misled, I would say, members of the public and also members of this council, not referring to the fact that the motion does reference the government support. Also, Councillor Garrido suggested that we've somehow amended that reference in the motion. I've not amended the reference subsequent to it going to the agenda setting committee. And just to highlight in the chat, I have made all members aware that I did issue a statement through the combined authority on the 10th of February, highlighting that the £5 billion wasn't enough. Agenda setting committee took place in this city council on the 8th of March. Also, Councillor Garrido talks about the motion not referencing the situation in social housing. You'll see that at 3.3, we asked the Chief Exec of the City Council to write to the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government to ask that government accede to the asks articulated in the cladding scandal campaign, End Our Cladding Scandal campaign. It's a 10-step plan. One of those steps in there is that social housing has full and equal access to funding being made available by national government. This motion absolutely does speak to the plight of people who find themselves caught up in the industrial and regulatory crisis in social housing. I have to say, I'm astonished by the comments from Councillor Saunders referring to this as a dog's breakfast and something put together on the back of a fag packet. Well, I don't know what fag packets he's been looking at recently, but I don't know how you would fit the text in this motion onto the back of a fag packet. But anyway, again, detracting from the substance of the issue here. I just want to remind colleagues that this tragedy dates back to the 14th of June 2017, nearly 4 years on since the tragedy of Grenfell Tower, which claimed 72 people's lives, injuring more than 70 people. On the 23rd of August 2017, Salford City Council held a special council and agreed to cash flow remediation works for the 9 blocks in Pendleton up to £25 million. As we know, that is a private finance initiative which was signed off by central government, and subsequently we've had to fight with the Treasury every step of the way to try and make progress with regards to those blocks. On the 16th of May 2018, the Prime Minister announced 400 million for social housing residential ACM funding for buildings 18 metres and above. On the 9th of May, the government announced a further 200 million for private sector blocks with ACM on. And on the 25th of February, myself and Mayor Andy Burnham lobbied Parliament prior to the government setting its budget for 2020-21. And I'd like to place on record my thanks to the residents, Manchester Gladiators and all of those involved in that lobby of Parliament. I have to say I didn't see Councillor Saunders and I didn't see Councillor Garrido at the lobby of Parliament, but nevertheless, you know, we did have some positive progress because government did announce on the 26th of May a £1 billion fund to remove unsafe non-ACM cladding on buildings above 18 metres. That was when the Building Safety Fund was launched. On the 10th of February this year, you'll know that the government announced 3.5 billion to remove cladding on buildings of 18 metres. But sadly, they also introduced a low interest loan schemes for those buildings between 11 and 18 metres.
Minute left, City Mayor.
Thank you very much. Ensuring that residents never pay £50 a month, more than £50 a month to remove cladding. This is scandalous. We've now got a two-tier system with regards to the industrial crisis. Also, they've talked about, you know, the monies. I mean, Councillor Humphreys talked about this. You know, government are making money from the costs of Waking Watch. £137 is the average cost of Waking Watch. The Treasury's taking 23. And also the Treasury is making money from increased insurance premiums. For every £100 increase, they're taking £12 in insurance premium tax. And also VAT, as we know, is being charged on remediation works. I think every single member of this council, in the interest of the people of Salford and Greater Manchester and beyond, should absolutely support this motion to fully fund the industrial and regulatory crisis and deal with the litigation after we've actually ensured safety for our residents. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, City Mayor. I've got two people left to speak, and after that I'm going to take this to the vote. So I've got Councillor Brocklehurst and then Councillor Walsh. So Councillor Brocklehurst first, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to be clear, colleagues, the government funding of £5 billion does not apply to and therefore does not address fire compartmentation in high-rise blocks of flats, including any inadequate fire doors, walls or fire stopping in cable routes and utility routes. This compartmentation in fire stopping is required to stop the spread of fire, superheated gas, smoke and lethally poisonous fumes from entering people's flats, common areas of the building, corridors and the vertical escape routes such as stairways. The true cost of fire safety measures are estimated at 15 billion. Government proposals are not adequate. People will still be deeply concerned for their safety, and therefore I support the motion, colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brocklehurst. And the last speaker is Councillor John Walsh, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Let me get my camera on. Yeah, thank you. I'd like to support the motion. I don't want to go over all the comments made by the people who do support the motion, but I do want to pick out what Councillor McIntyre said. This is about people. This is about people who live in our city. And actually, the government is morally bankrupt by only giving us a third of the cost to remediate this. And anybody in this council, I echo Jim Camel's comments. I'd implore the Conservative Party not to sit on the fence. The people in the city will remember the way that you voted. This is about people. The government is morally bankrupt. Anybody who doesn't support this motion, well, I'll leave you to finish that sentence. They might be as bankrupt as well. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. Okay, I have a proposer and a seconder. So I'm going to, in order to avoid the debacle of the last one, I'm going to ask whether we have a Mike Ralph to conduct a roll call vote in which members will be asked to indicate whether they are in favour of the motion or otherwise.
Chair, Councillor Dawson, can I just have a ruling on people who are not here being able to vote or record? I don't think that's ever been allowed before.
Chair,
I don't think so.
I am actually still here. So if it's
about me, that's all right then, Councillor Saunders.
But can I ask? Can I just be called first because I really need to go? So if that, surely that can't be against the rules.
You have to. It's a ruling we've always had.
No, if I'm just called first, that's what I mean.
Can you do, councillors, please cease your debate online? Can I ask for Sian for clarity on this matter, please?
It's only members that are present as a vote is taken that can be that can participate in the voting process.
And it must be in alphabetical order.
That is the usual way it's recorded. I don't see why we couldn't move from having it in alphabetical order.
Okay, then in the instance, in order to move things on efficiently, Councillor Saunders, you can vote first so that you can leave, and then I'd like to go back into alphabetical order, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Yes, abstain.
Okay.
Thank you. Moving on.
Right. City Mayor Paul Dennett.
For the motion.
Councillor Antrobus.
For the motion.
Councillor August.
For.
Councillor Bailey.
For.
Councillor Barnes.
For.
Councillor Bellamy. Councillor Bellamy, I think she may have left. Councillor Bentham.
For the motion.
Councillor Boschel.
For.
Councillor Brocklehurst.
For.
Councillor Brooks.
For.
Councillor Birch.
For.
Councillor Kamel.
For.
Councillor Clark. Councillor Clark. Councillor Cohen.
For.
Councillor Collinson.
Abstain.
Councillor Critchley.
For.
Councillor Dawson.
For the motion.
Councillor Dickman.
For.
Councillor Edwards.
For.
Councillor Fletcher.
For the motion.
Councillor Karen Garrido.
Abstain.
Councillor Robin Garrido.
Abstain.
Councillor Goulden.
For.
Councillor Hamilton.
For.
Councillor Hesling.
For.
Councillor Hines.
Definitely for.
Councillor Humphreys.
For.
Councillor Jolly.
For.
Councillor Jones.
For.
Councillor Kelly.
For.
Councillor King.
For the motion.
Councillor Lancaster. Councillor Lancaster.
For.
Councillor Leitner. Councillor Leitner. Councillor Linden.
For.
Councillor McCusker.
For.
Councillor McIntyre.
Absolutely for.
Councillor Merry.
For.
Councillor Nelson.
For.
Councillor Curran-Ziza.
For.
Councillor Pevitt.
For the motion.
Councillor Gina Reynolds.
For the motion.
Councillor Neil Reynolds.
For.
Councillor Ryan.
For.
Councillor Sharp.
For.
Councillor Turner.
Abstain.
Councillor Wade.
For.
Councillor Joan Walsh.
For.
Councillor John Walsh.
For.
Councillor Ward. Councillor Ward.
Abstain.
Councillor Weir.
For.
Councillor Wheeler.
For.
And Councillor Wilson.
For.
I think we can confirm that that motion is carried.
Thank you for that, Mike. Okay, so with that, I'm now going to move on to the next item, which is the statement of the elected City Mayor. Can I ask the City Mayor to present his statement to Council, please?
Thank you very much, Chair, and happy St Patrick's Day to you, Chair, and also to members of the Council. First of all, may I open this session of Council by paying respects to the former Councillor and Ceremonial Mayor, Alan Clegg, who recently passed away. Alan held the position of Ceremonial Mayor from 2013-14, following 20 years of service in this great city of Salford, representing Weaston Seedley and Ordsall wards. Alan was much loved as a local councillor. He's a friend to so many, from across our communities in our city, and also a great friend to myself. And my thoughts and prayers are with his family and friends at this difficult time. I'd also like to pay my respects to the sitting councillor Barry Warner, who has sadly lost his wife at the weekend. This tragic loss will be affecting Councillor Warner deeply, and with all my heart, I would like to pay respects to him and his family. My thoughts are also with Councillor Ray Mashiter as well at this time, after sadly losing his father recently. And again, my thoughts and prayers are with Ray and the family. 10 councillors are standing down this election, a large turnover. Councillors Derek Antrobus, Gillian Collinson, Laura Edwards, Brendan Ryan, Charlie McIntyre, Stephen Hesling, Ronnie Wilson, David Jolly, Michael Wheeler and Richard Critchley. Between these councillors, there is 137 years of experience, which we'll be losing from this city council. This is a huge bank of experience and commitment and dedication from which the people of our city have benefited greatly. Colleagues will know Councillor Derek Antrobus joined the council in 1979, the year that I was actually born, and has seen great many changes brought to this city through his role in planning and development. Similarly, Councillor David Jolly has provided great insight and forensic insight into all of his work as Chair of Overview and Scrutiny. Councillors Charlie McIntyre and Ronnie Wilson, I know both took great pride in their stints as ceremonial mayor. And Councillor Gillian Collinson also has championed many issues in this city affecting children and young people. Many of the councillors standing down from this council have done great and amazing things over many years, probably far too many for me to mention today. But I want each and every one of you to know that, you know, I really appreciate the work you've done for your residents, your communities and your wards. And I'd like to thank you and also wish you all the very best for the future and also some well-earned rest. I'd also like to welcome the new Chief Executive, Tom Stannard, to his first session of full council following Budget Council last month. I'm sure this will be the first of many. Tom has had a whirlwind 6-week in post, but is already working hard to make a difference for the city's residents, communities and businesses across the city. And I'm really excited to work alongside Tom as we look to the future and face the unprecedented challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic and what comes after that. It will have not gone unnoticed by colleagues that this will be the last full council prior to the all-out elections in the city of Salford to be held on May the 6th. These elections come following one of the most challenging years this country has ever faced, and certainly one of the most challenging years I've ever seen in my lifetime. The year of the COVID-19 pandemic, right off the back of Brexit announcements and obviously the economic consequences and shock that's accompanied all of this. Next week will herald an important milestone for the country. The 23rd of March will be a national day of reflection as we remember all those we've lost to the pandemic and commemorate the bravery of our frontline workers who have put their lives on their line to protect us. Words can't describe the impact on people's and families' lives of losing a loved one. And we have lost so many to the COVID-19 pandemic. As it stands today, Britain still has the highest death toll per head of population of any country in the world. Questions are being asked of obviously early responses to the COVID-19 pandemic. And I have no doubt that in time a reckoning will be had around decisions that were or were not taken in response to this new threat. But today we're still unable to focus in many respects on the detail of those matters as we continue to grapple with the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. What we should do today is celebrate the successes of our city and our communities in responding to this pandemic, a response which I believe has made every one of us proud. No sooner had the pandemic been announced, councillors from this chamber teamed up with residents and voluntary sector and communities, NHS colleagues and officers of this city council to launch the Spirit of Salford network. an integrated network of professionals and volunteers, which I do not believe was replicated in scale or success anywhere else in the country. Thousands of residents flocked to register with our emergency voluntary service, delivering emergency food parcels, which were packed up right here in Salford in Buell Hill Park. We developed a single contact number to refer people between different parts of council services, created banks of volunteers and officers ready to receive phone calls and check up on vulnerable residents who were struggling. Thousands were referred to our emergency support services, NHS services, and thousands of meals were delivered, all outside of national guidance and programmes. Through the network, we've managed to channel tens of thousands in funding through to food banks and food charities in our city. And we're investing to make our communities food secure. And this all happened before the Rashford Revolution too. The city's vaccine response has also been outstanding, so successful in fact that for a second time we've received instruction to scale down our vaccination programme for residents, which obviously has resulted in the short term in the closure of Eccles and Earlham community vaccine hubs in the city. More than 200 employees have supported this huge operation, including the opening of the sites, doing the marshalling and helping with the administration. For several weeks, we were fortunate to have had support from the Royal Lancers to roll out the COVID-19 targeted testing at scale programme and the NHS vaccine services. On behalf of the residents of Salford, we would like to thank each and every member of the Royal Lancers that we've had the pleasure and privilege of working with. It's been a huge effort to get us to this point with 97,840 vaccinations being administered across the city up until the 15th of March this year. However, these delays are incredibly frustrating. Our officers and obviously health colleagues have been valiantly dealing with an incredible volatile system of deliveries in which information is scarce. And the edict we were issued to scale down our vaccination programme last week means vaccines are only available to the government's current list of cohorts, despite us having capacity to commence second doses and open up to the wider population. It is worrying that we're not able to proceed given so many residents in our city remain unprotected from the virus through the vaccine. And having suffered an entire year in Tier 3 lockdown, I believe this is incredibly unfair to have paused Salford's rollout. But the stoppages speak also to the success of our local coordination and organisation in the city, of which I think every one of us who are members of this council will be extremely proud. Time and time again throughout this pandemic, government has made decisions which have been at odds with the nation's priorities, spending billions upon billions on private test and trace contracts, paying for offices in which staff are sat twiddling their thumbs without making a single call for days and sometimes weeks on end. The pandemic has revealed the weaknesses of this nation's privatised infrastructure. Why were the NHS not allowed to run the test and trace system? Why was the army only brought in to provide tests once the market had failed us? Why do we still insist on paying out billions in profits to private companies rather than paying directly for services through either our NHS, local government or other public bodies? When the time came to feed the nation's children, government missed the national mood again. It took the footballer Marcus Rashford to raise a national campaign shaming the government into paying to ensure that children of this nation were fed during this time of unprecedented national challenge. In the brief period before the government's U-turn, some truly ugly opinions were aired from the government's parliamentary benches on whether or not British children had the right to food, or whether they should be punished for the mistakes of their parents and the difficult predicament families have found themselves in. Now we see yet another potential U-turn on the horizon and being speculated in the press and the media, following an angry public backlash against the 1% pay offer to our country's nurses. Once again, ugly arguments about nurses' remunerations precede a likely change in tone. The nation can see that if billions can be spent propping up useless private contracts, then our public sector heroes can be paid a decent wage to prevent them continuing in real-term loss of income over the past decade. Whilst we're at it, government should also provide proper money for our nation's carers, fulfilling the promises they have made consistently since David Cameron was in office to fix our country's broken social care system. More of our pandemic's heroes neglected, whilst the Treasury tells councils to increase their local rates to foot the shortfall. And whilst we are addressing the issue of finance, the entire country has been astonished at the spectacle in the last budget announcement of the government's Levelling Up Fund, a fund which claimed to be about raising areas in need of support. Somehow Salford, the 18th most deprived local authority area in the country, was not included in the Levelling Up Fund's priority group. Yet Rishi Sunak's constituency of Richmond was. Also included in the priority was Robert Jenrick's constituency of Newark, and was Canterbury and Sherwood. In this council chamber, I've historically raised the issues of pork barrel politics under the Conservatives on many occasions, whether it's sweetheart deals for Surrey, money for housing spent only in the wealthiest areas of the country, transitional grant funding awarded to favoured local authorities, or the Towns Fund prioritising Cheadle over Middleton. I've raised these issues many, many times, but perhaps the national press is finally waking up. In all my life, I have never known local government funding to have been so politicised, so meddled with by national government as it is today. Now I can anticipate the response of opposition councillors today to these points. I know how much Councillor Turner in particular dislikes politics being discussed in the council chamber. But in advance of the usual hyperventilation we hear from the opposition about matters of importance to Salford people, I have to state that as an elected politician in this city, I have always seen it as part of my duty to hold the government's feet to the fire and demand the best for the people I seek to serve and represent, without fear or favour. In Salford, people are being starved of funding for political reasons. Let me be clear, I will raise that issue in this council chamber. In Salford, key worker heroes see their real-term pay decline for years, whilst billions are lavished on wasteful private contracts. Let me be clear, I will raise these issues in this council chamber. In Salford, residents suffer due to the decisions of national government not to fully fund replacement and removal of dangerous cladding on tower blocks, despite endless promises to do so. Let me be clear, I will raise these issues in this council chamber. It is not just my right to do so, but my obligation to the people of our city. And to be frank, I doubt I am the only one sick of hearing the city's opposition complaining about the democratic process and complaining about being held to account for the actions of their political party. So I may request today, rather than refusing to engage in informed debate and discussion about the issues raised, that the opposition sensibly engage in matters discussed and debated in this council chamber in the interests of the people of Salford. And to end on a more positive note, on the 22nd of March, I'll be launching the Salford Way alongside our Chief Executive. The programme will be for a fairer, greener and healthier Salford. This is an ambitious plan to build a more inclusive and green local economy and fairer city where everyone can reach their full potential and live prosperous and fulfilling lives. As Salford begins a journey of economic transformation, this event will ultimately shine a spotlight on our plans for the Great Eight, the key priorities of our city, the inclusive economic strategy, tackling poverty strategy, and Salford's new crowdfunding initiative. As we begin our recovery from the devastating impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, our approach to promoting economic and social equality is more pressing than ever. Our vision of an economic inclusivity alongside our plans to tackle health inequalities are vital as we seek to address the imbalance across our city. This is a vision for New Salford's economy based on productive industries, local businesses, cooperatives and community organisation. It's a vision for an economy with well-paid jobs in environmentally friendly occupation. A vision for Salford in which the benefits of the city's economic growth are distributed more fairly amongst the people we all seek to serve and represent. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, City Mayor. Before I take the first question, just want to point out that members voted for a 15-minute extension, of which there are less than 10 minutes left, and I've got nearly 40 minutes worth of business. So unless you intend to further extend the meeting, I just want to make sure that you're aware that your questions are tight and concise. Sian, did you want to speak there?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Rule 16.2 of our council procedure rules provides that a member may not move any of the motions in Rule 16.1 more than once at a meeting, and we've already had a decision that a meeting of full council should extend beyond the 3 hours. So the options available, if we're falling short of time, would be for the remaining business to be considered at a time and date fixed by yourself as ceremonial mayor, or if a date isn't fixed at this meeting, the remaining business would be considered at the next ordinary meeting.
Okay, I'm of the mind that it will be considered at the next meeting. I'm going to let the remaining time then tick out by going to questions to the City Mayor. Whether he gets opportunity to reply, I think he might have to go reply after each one in order to make it sensible. Okay, so with that, I think first up was it Councillor Bill Hines.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Paul, for your comments. First of all, could I concur with you in thanking everybody that's volunteered throughout this past 12 months and have gone to the nth degree to make sure that vulnerable people in this city are cared for. And also, I want to pay tribute to all our staff who've gone again to the nth degree in working hour after hour after hour to make sure that the council doesn't fall over and we're there to protect people. But to the more important things, I've got to say quite honestly, I'm sick to the back teeth of this government. And this government, because of its incompetency, as you have said, City Mayor, incompetency throughout the 12 months, when, as you quite rightly said, more people per head of population have died in this country than perhaps anywhere in the world. That is an absolute disgrace. And why have they died? Because the government were too slow in taking advice and moving quickly. And then, of course, throughout showing the incompetency, they ignored scientists. Scientists just before Christmas that talked about a circuit break. That's what they should have done. How many people have died because of that? Totally incompetent. And of course, the opposition, no doubt, because they've said it before, will come back and say how well the government supported us. Yes, they have supported us. And by God, we needed that support. But my response to that would be, had they not responded in that way, there could have been real issues of riots on the streets, probably businesses really going berserk and everything. And more than anything else, though, it's the deceit of the government, how they've deceived people in this city and this country over the last 12 months. Deception is unbelievable. And we're living in a most authoritarian government that I've ever lived in during my lifetime. I mean, if Shakespeare was here today, he would no doubt say, the state, not the state of Denmark. You know, he wouldn't say something is rotten in the state of Denmark. He would say something is rotten in the state of Britain. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hines.
Chair, I think you're on mute.
I'm sorry. I'll make it clear. I think the city solicitor was clear that I am constitutionally unable to extend the meeting further. So, you know, there's nothing I can do about that. So if you can please avoid doing that chat. In fact, we're wasting time. We've got the next questioner coming up who have lost complete of. Michelle, who's up next?
Yeah, next question.
I think it's Councillor King.
Councillor King.
Chair, are you wanting me to respond to Councillor Hines? I thought you wanted me to take them individually.
Yeah, go on, while we've got time.
Okay, thanks for that, Chair. Sorry, I was just acting on what you previously said. So in terms of responding to Councillor Hines, like yourself, Councillor Hines, I'd also like to thank every single person in this city who's done a fantastic job in terms of supporting each other during what has been probably the biggest crisis I've certainly seen in my lifetime. So you're absolutely right. We should be paying tribute to each and every one who's done an amazing job in the NHS, in local government, in our community and voluntary sector, and in our communities just generally through people doing what they do in the city of Salford, which we talk about all the time in terms of the spirit of our city. Like yourself, I'm also sick to the back teeth of the incompetency of this government. And you rightly highlighted the point I made in my speech that, you know, the death toll in this country is the highest of any country in the world per head of population currently. I think there will come a time in the not too distant future to properly appraise ourselves of what happened and you know, what was good and what was bad about the response to this COVID-19 pandemic. But I absolutely agree with you. We have one of the most authoritarian governments I've certainly seen in my lifetime, and it's deeply, deeply frightening. And prior to going into this pandemic, Councillor Hines, you'll be aware of what was going on in local government in terms of austerity, 10 years of austerity, which had hollowed out local government and therefore compromised our ability, I would argue, to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. There's so many things we can talk about on all of this, but what we need to be focused on moving forward is serving the interests of the people of our city. So COVID recovery, economic recovery will be at the forefront of my mind in terms of how we respond post-pandemic. But there's still so much more to do to administer the vaccine, to support our families, our communities, our residents as we move forward during this unprecedented crisis. So thank you, Councillor Hines.
Okay, I've got only 2 minutes left of the council agenda, and I'm seeing numerous calls for a motion to suspend. I think, sorry, Sean, can't see the message in here. Yeah, sorry. Okay, Sean, I've got numerous calls to suspend the standing orders in order to extend the meeting beyond the 15 and therefore not incur reusing the same rule twice.
Yes, we can proceed in that manner, Chair. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask members then, are you happy to suspend the sorry, I'm losing my flow now. Suspend standing orders in order to extend the meeting, but I want to make it clear, I'm not making this an open-ended meeting. I'm going to be really strict and say we've got another 15 minutes and we've got to try and pile 40 minutes worth of business into that. So
I need 30 minutes, Chair.
No, quite frankly, it's gone on long enough now. I'm quite appalled with the whole proceedings. I've had enough of it. So can we just all go back to our real lives now? Thank you.
Sorry, I don't know who that was, but can you...
Clark, it was.
Right.
On the points of
is anybody going to do standing orders, please? Yes or no?
Sorry, point of order, Chair. I put a point of order in the chat and it's not been picked up.
Sorry, go on then.
Thank you, Chair. In the discussion about the extension of the meeting, that took place whilst the meeting wasn't live. So as the advice by Sian was given, we had to readdress that, and it never was. There was an extension made for a 30-minute extension during that time when it was offline. So surely that 30 minutes should be moved again. And I think Councillor August has already moved for a 30-minute extension, so I would like to second that.
I believe I said in the meeting 15 minutes, to which everyone agreed. Unless,
but that meeting, sorry, Chair, that part of the meeting wasn't live, so we had to then redo that bit again as we.
No, that was at 11 o'clock, right at the start, after the break. The ceremonial mayor did move it, and we all agreed.
Yes, it was on the restart. I did ask for 15 minutes, and that was live. So now I've got a motion before me. Are we going to move a motion for standing orders and then extend it and for a period of time to be agreed by members? So Sian, please.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. My understanding was that we did move the motion to extend the meeting by 15 minutes, and that was moved and seconded. But under Rule 16.1 N, a motion can be moved without notice at this meeting to suspend a particular council procedure rule.
Yeah, so we did that, and we can't do it anymore. Now I have before me a motion to suspend standing orders that so the purpose of which is to extend, and unless I get one within the next minute or so, I am going to be closing the meeting down. And in fact, the meeting is now expired, so I think I'm constitutionally bound to close the meeting.
No, you're not, Chair. I've moved 30-minute extension.
Seconded.
The Chair, sorry, on point of order, the Chair has just made a ruling and the Council has to abide by that ruling. You can't just make up your own rules as you go along.
Councillor,
a motion was taken whilst the meeting was still live.
But it wasn't voted on, was it? It wasn't agreed with the council before the meeting ended.
This is anarchy.
I am absolutely appalled. Can members please take a moment? I am fairly clear that when I resume the meeting, I asked for 15 minutes. That was then seconded and agreed. Now, unless somebody tells me to the contrary, that is not the case, then I am going to now close this meeting because I gave opportunity for you to waive standing orders and we have now been timed out, so I can't progress any further business unless, Sian, you can tell me any reason why I can do that.
Yes. Could I just make it clear that I've been having IT issues and I've been unable to have full access to the meeting chat. My view is that we could take a pragmatic approach here. I don't know if Tom wants to come in at this point.
Yes, Chair, could I perhaps come in and try and help with this, if that's okay? I think under the circumstances, Chair, it's perfectly reasonable for you to use your discretion. There is some ambiguity in Standing Order 16, as many members have pointed out today, and clearly the standing orders don't provide for the unusual circumstances of the pandemic in relation to power outages and so on. So I think on the basis that members have had a discussion and proposed that the meeting was extended prior to 12:45, I think it's perfectly reasonable under 16.2 for you to regard the meeting as still in progress and propose an extension to time. I think what you just need to be clear about as members is, are you proposing that's time limited or are you proposing that's open-ended? But I'm quite comfortable, Chair, that you use your discretion to continue with the meeting and conclude the business today.
Well, it would be my wish to conclude the business. Okay.
I think that is sensible and advisable, Chair, and I suggest we proceed on that basis.
I'm also mindful that I do not want it to be open-ended. Members have got other meetings to go to, so I would like to time limit what we've got left. So with that, City Mayor, would you like to speak?
Yeah, no, I'm happy with the suggestion to move the suspension of standing orders ultimately, which is what I think you were asking for. I think there's been a request in the chat from members of this council that we extend for 30 minutes. So, you know, it's to be voted on. Both those things are to be voted on.
Okay, well, I'm going to try, in order to move things on quickly. Members, are you happy for the suspension of standing orders to allow for extra time?
Agreed.
Yes.
Agreed.
Agreed. No, I've put in the chat. I have to.
No.
Sorry.
Chair made a decision.
No.
Yes.
No.
Absolutely.
I think
No.
This is ridiculous.
Again, I'm not so sure.
Councillor Mullen, I suggest that we need a recorded vote on this.
Okay, further eating up time. Okay, and I'm just going to...
Point of order, Chair. Can we have a time that we're extending to as part of this vote? So is it half an hour from now?
You're stealing my thunder there, Councillor. I was going to say, to be clear, that we are going to move a motion to suspend standing orders and that it be adding 30 minutes, and that 30 minutes shall commence at the end of the vote. Okay, so Mike, would you like to begin the roll call for me, please?
Yep. City Mayor Paul Dennett.
Yeah, I support the motion.
Councillor Antrobus.
Support the motion.
Councillor August.
Support the motion.
Councillor Bailey.
Support.
Councillor Arms.
Support.
Councillor Bellamy.
Gone.
Councillor Bellamy. Councillor Bentham.
Support.
Councillor Boschel.
For.
Councillor Brocklehurst.
For.
Councillor Brooks. Councillor Brooks. Councillor Birch. Councillor Birch. Councillor Kamel.
For.
Councillor Clark.
Against.
Councillor Cohen.
Support.
Councillor Collinson.
Abstain.
Councillor Critchley.
For.
Councillor Dawson.
For.
Councillor Dickman.
Support the motion.
Councillor Edwards.
For the motion.
Councillor Fletcher.
But I would have preferred 15 minutes, but I suppose I'll say 4. I'm off to make my soup now.
Councillor Karen Garrido.
Against.
Councillor Robin Garrido. Councillor Robin Garrido. Councillor Goulden.
Against, I've got to go now.
Councillor Goulden.
Against, I've got to go now.
Councillor Hamilton. Councillor Hamilton. Councillor Hesling. Councillor Hines. Councillor Hines.
I think he's gone.
Councillor Humphreys.
Yes, support.
Councillor Jolly.
For.
Councillor Jones.
For.
Councillor Kelly. Councillor Kelly.
For the motion.
Councillor King.
For the motion.
Councillor Lancaster. Councillor Lancaster.
Oh, but we would have preferred 15 minutes. We've got electoral matters after this.
Councillor Leitner.
Against. The chair already made a decision.
Councillor Lewis. Councillor Linden.
For.
Councillor McCusker.
For.
Councillor McIntyre.
For.
Councillor Merry.
For.
Councillor Nelson.
For.
Councillor Curran-Ziza.
For.
Councillor Pevitt.
For the motion.
Councillor Gina Reynolds.
For.
Councillor Neil Reynolds.
For.
Councillor Ryan. Councillor Ryan. Councillor Saunders, I think he's left.
Councillor Ryan for. Sorry.
Councillor Ryan for. Councillor Sharp.
Against.
Councillor Turner. Councillor Turner. Councillor Wade.
For.
Councillor Joan Walsh.
For.
Councillor John Walsh.
For.
Councillor Ward.
Against.
Councillor Weir. Councillor Weir. Councillor Wheeler.
Abstain.
And Councillor Wilson.
Against.
Okay. I think just a rough straw poll. I think that motion is carried.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, moving on. I'm going to close this meeting at 5 to 1, come what may, and I now allow Councillor King.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Can I just ask, did you record my vote? Because I did vote against. I don't recall it being read out.
Yes, I've got Councillor Garrido as voting against. Councillor Bobby Garrido on both.
Councillor Garrido was against, but
yeah,
Bobby
both. I've got.
Councillors, wait. Can we have Councillor King, please?
Thank you, Ceremony Mayor. I would want to speak in favour of what the City Mayor has said. And whereas we can't blame the Tory government for COVID-19, we can certainly blame them for their inept handling of the pandemic. If you recall, at the earlier stages, Boris Johnson was in his best Trumpian mood, meeting and greeting people across the country with no mask and shaking hands. And that, I think, indicates his attitude towards the pandemic. We can also blame the Johnson government for their failure to prepare for the pandemic. They were actually warned about this from the World Health Organization and others. And I think we can also blame the government for failing to procure PPE. As a result of that, many health professionals and their families got COVID. Some of them will now suffer from long COVID, and others sadly will have died. And I do also blame the government for their disastrous handling of the test and trace. Not only were they inept in handling it, but the manner in which they handed out millions of pounds of contracts to Tory cronies. Reports that some of these consultants were being paid over £6,000 per day, £6,000 per day. They had no particular experience. To rub salt into the wounds, they then breached the civil service protocols by not declaring these contracts in sufficient time. Some £37 billion of public money was largely wasted, and not a single complaint from the fellow Tories. To cap it all, Johnson's government has now offered a miserly 1% pay rise to nurses who helped to save his life. That's a fine thank you from this Tory government. Now, I have to say that I've had my first jab at the Clarendon Centre. I was welcomed there by a volunteer who showed me where to park. He wasn't on £6,000 per day. I was welcomed into the centre by 2 young soldiers. They went on £6,000 per day. I was escorted to the verification table by an officer from Salford Community Leisure, a public sector cooperative. They were not on £6,000 per day. And I was then shown to the injection section where the man who treated me was an NHS worker from Bolton, and he was not on £6,000 per day either. The rollout of the vaccination, City Mayor and Ceremonial Mayor, is an NHS success story and public health story and a success story. And of course, the National Health Service was created by the Labour Party. Compare that to the abject failures of the Tory party and the Tory government and their inept handling of nearly every other aspect of the pandemic. Thank you, Chair and colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor King. I'm going to go through them all. We can relax a bit. Okay, just check. Is Councillor Karen Garrido next, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to start off by saying, and I wasn't trying to be or going to be this morning or this afternoon as it is now, too critical of the mayor, but I will, and I have to tell him, if he gets elected in May, I for one will never stop from holding his feet to the fire as well, as he said about the government. I will always question. That's what oppositions do. That's what we're here for, is to actually look and to comment on things. And, you know, we sometimes agree and we more often than not just don't agree. But I have 2 questions and a comment. well, 2 comments and 2 questions, if that's possible. The question I want to ask is, and this can be answered very quickly, I just want a plain yes or no answer, no frills, no austerity, I just want yes and no. Have you raised the council tax this year? Yes or no? Have you taken 10 sites out of part 1 of the local plan? Yes or no? My 2 comments are, you very kindly said at the last council on the 20th of May that I would have the information. I have to let you know, City Mayor, that I was told by the officers that I am unable to have that information. If this is the council applying to somebody, right, about a legal question, why as a councillor am I not allowed to actually see the documentation? So no, I wasn't allowed to see the documentation. I was told that I could not see it, that it was private and confidential. I find that quite difficult to understand. As I say, if the council was paying for these costs, for this barrister to give his ruling, then why as a councillor am I not allowed to see these? So those are the things. But my main comment has to be today, and it's nothing political. I hope it's not political. It's not meant to be political, right? My comment to the City Mayor is sadly connected to the sad death of Sarah Everard and the terrible number of women in this country who are threatened, attacked and killed on the streets of our country. Our hearts at this moment must go out to every parent or every friend or every daughter who may have lost somebody, or any family to come to mind. Can I ask the City Mayor to re-look at the lighting in our city and on our streets? Since the new LED lights have been illuminating our streets, or not as I see it, walking down any of our roads and streets in our city, they are very dark. Under the lampposts, they're bright, but when you get a small distance away from it, they're not well illuminated at all. So we have dark areas, really dark areas. There's not enough lampposts, there's not enough light, and we need to be looking at this. I know it would increase our carbon footprint, and I know the conservationists will be very unhappy with my suggestion. And I'm sorry, but it does not, but it cannot affect the way that people feel out on our streets. People have to feel safe. We have to make sure that this lighting is looked at. And I hope this is not political, and this will be carried out by asking women, children, and the men of our city and our elderly. And we will take the experts' advice on it, I hope. But we have to make sure that our streets are well illuminated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garrido. Councillor Turner, please.
Chair, I think Councillor Turner's left the meeting now.
Okay, I've got Councillor Edwards next.
Thank you, Chair. Like many women across the country and like Karen Garrido, I've been absolutely floored by the news about Sarah Everard. I feel a great loss about a woman I've never met, and alongside women across the country, I've been forced to reflect on my experiences. This is my last meeting and I can't leave the chamber without talking about this issue, which is why I voted to extend the meeting. During my election campaign, I received a disturbing letter from an anonymous person who was talking about a local issue. I actually agreed with the sentiment of the letter, but there were random sexually violent references throughout, using terms such as rape and pillaging. Last year, I received a call from someone who claimed to be a resident grateful for support I'd given them. He proceeded to try to get me to join in some bizarre fantasy, as I believe from the noises he was making, it sounded like he was masturbating. Colleagues in Manchester received a similar call. The man was just using the public nature of female councillors' details for his own pleasure. I noticed my address was on the council website, and for the next few days I lived in what I assured myself was a rational fear that he would come because I contacted the police. Not long after, I was awoken by a man banging on my door at 5 AM. He was parading down the street, but staring only into my window. Terrified, I rang 999 and I cried my eyes out down the phone for half an hour until the police arrived and moved him on. This was a genuine mistake, which I later discovered, but as I'm shaking now, you can tell I feared for my life in that moment. And that was because of the incident I'd experienced a few days earlier. Walking to school down the East Lancs, I was catcalled at least twice a month, despite being very clearly a child because I was wearing uniform. Men in vehicles parked at traffic lights would have absolutely no shame in catcalling me, knowing that anyone could turn and identify them. The first time I ever walked home from school alone, I was approached by a man asking for directions. I've only ever told a few people about this. The man ignored my directions to Walton Gateway. He started asking where I lived. He was asking if he could come home with me and was staring at my legs and licking his lips. I was 13 years old. I was in uniform. Cars were going so fast down the East Lancs and nobody could see what was going on. I've never felt more alone in my life. From absolutely nowhere, a woman cycled past. She saw my eyes widen and stopped. I said, "This man is trying to get to Walton Gateway, but he does not understand my directions." My voice was shaking, as it is now, and she didn't leave until he left. He ran as fast as he could over the East Lancs. I don't even want to think about what happened, what would have happened if this lady didn't come past. She checked if I was okay. I lied, said I was fine, and I cried the whole way home. I've never told my mum, and I made up why I was so upset. I still haven't told my parents, though I'm sure they'll find out now. I called last night and I still couldn't get the words out. I blame myself. My skirt was rolled up, so I thought maybe I've given the wrong impression. At 13, I thought I'd led on an adult man who could see I was a child by just existing. I feel guilty about it now because I don't know what he's gone on to do. Harassment of schoolgirls is so common and we have to do something about it to make sure girls don't feel how I did and blame themselves. Reflecting on my experiences as a child, I wonder, what did I expect in public office? If men thought me walking down a street as a child was an invitation for harassment, of course, some men will then abuse the fact that my details are publicly available. As an adult, I've been groped in clubs. I've not even thought about speaking to the bouncers because it's just normalised. The death of Sarah has made me think about a girl that I was a girl guide with when I was younger. A few years ago, a man randomly murdered her on her way home from college in broad daylight. I just keep crying the past few weeks because since it's hit the news, not just because I think about the girl that I was friends with, but because it's just so unfair and it's just going to happen again and again. In fact, in England, every 3 days a man murders a woman. I've spoken to my group of female friends in the last few days and every single one of us has an experience of harassment, groping, being scared for our lives, and even worse, some of them have experience of sexual assault and violence. I don't actually think of myself as being adversely affected by gender violence, though my shaking voice and clear distress might say otherwise. I'm just sharing my experiences not to shock you or for sympathy, but because I feel like my experiences are a baseline, and if anyone has anything different, then they're only likely to be worse. Gender-based violence and harassment comes in so many forms. Domestic abuse, street harassment, child marriage, non-consensual sexting, revenge porn. What will Salford Council do to protect women? And I want to say that I intended to ask this of Councillor August as the leader of Equalities, but due to time I wanted to make sure that this was heard, so you may wish to defer the question, Mayor.
Councillor, wow, what a moving speech. I don't know what to say. Those are certainly powerful words. I am horrified on your behalf. I don't even know how to go about even responding to some of those things. I hope that the city mayor is listening. I have got a number of other people wishing to speak. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the city mayor to come in at this point, and then I'm going to take Councillor Wade, Councillor Walsh, Councillor August and Councillor McIntyre. City Mayor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Can I just thank Councillor Edwards for, bravely sharing with members of the public and also members of this City Council her experiences to date. Much of what Councillor Edwards has just shared with us, I've not known personally, and like yourself, Chair, I'm genuinely horrified at what I've heard. And it certainly, strengthens the absolute necessity for this city council to look at the issue of harassment and sexual violence within our city, working with partner agencies, because clearly there's shared remit in this space with Greater Manchester Police and other regulatory colleagues in this space. But I have to say the information Councillor Edwards has shared with us today is absolutely harrowing, and no woman or girl should feel the way Councillor Edwards has. And I just want to thank her for being so brave in sharing this information with us today. It's quite clear from what Councillor Edwards has said, this has not been easy. Councillor Edwards also highlighted that she's not even told her parents. And also Councillor Edwards, really sadly highlighted that she's also gone through feelings and emotions where she's blamed herself for what has happened to her. And I think that is absolutely tragic. No woman or girl in our city should blame themselves for harassment and sexual violence that they experience. And we, as a city council, working with our partners in this city, should absolutely strengthen our resolve to tackling these issues in our city. And I certainly commit myself and this city council, working with our partners and hopefully working with all of you as members of this city council, to really strengthen our resolve in tackling this issue. I commit to raising this with the appropriate lead member immediately after this meeting, really, to look at what we can do through the Crime and Safety Partnership and working with officers of the City Council. But I do note that Councillor Edwards did ask specifically for Councillor August to respond on this matter. And I think it's only right and proper that I now invite Councillor August to respond to what Councillor Edwards has said, because I think, like all of us in this council chamber today, I'm truly shocked and horrified at what I've heard, and I feel a real sense of duty and urgency to really respond thoroughly to matters that have been raised with myself in this council chamber. So if I can, Chair, can I ask Councillor August to now respond to Councillor Edwards?
Is the lead member going to have a right to reply?
Yes, Councillor Lancaster, I will let you in. There's time in this debate. I'm going to let Councillor August come in, and then I'll then take Councillor Wade, Councillor Walsh, and I'm going to close the debate with you, Councillor Lancaster, if that's okay.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Paul. And thank you to Laura for sharing that story. I'm so sorry that it happened to you. I know I'm shaking just now thinking about it, and I'm almost lost for words. Every time somebody comes forward, it gives strength to all those who have had such experiences and gives even more weight to the need for change. So thank you for giving me also the courage to say this, something that I haven't even told my parents before now, and it's unfortunately remarkably similar to your experience. When I was in high school, walking home one day, again in my uniform, in broad daylight, a car pulled up to me and asked for directions. And when I went over to give them, the man in the car tried to pull me in. I was terrified, but the adrenaline kicked in and somehow I managed to struggle free and run home. I ran home to my room and I sobbed, but I never told my parents, and this will be the first that they hear of it. I was still terrified that this was my fault. I was walking alone. I spoke to a stranger. I was wearing eyeliner. I broke the rules, so I kept quiet. As an adult, I look back and I am now terrified of what that man might have gone on to do. I am terrified that my inaction may have let a predator loose on somebody else. I say to anyone listening, it's not your fault. Tell your story. Unfortunately, almost all women have one to tell. Today, I am in a position to actually do something about gendered violence and attacks. And so I'm pleased to announce the establishment of a Salford task force for women and girls, an all-woman group of counsellors and partners from across the city to look into issues that we face in Salford and come up with recommendations as to how we fix it. I invite women counsellors from all parties to join, and anyone else who is interested in finding out more to please contact me. You know, we finally have the spotlight on this issue, an issue that's gone on for far too long. So let's do something about it. And again, just to reiterate, my utter thanks to Councillor Edwards for sharing this story. You are a councillor I'm immensely proud to know and have worked beside, and I'm sorry that we will be losing you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor August. Councillor Wade.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like, first of all, to pay tribute to Councillor Edwards for her deeply moving account. It really does reassure me that we are going to have the Salford Task Group for Women and Girls that may help to address this issue. Like the councillors who've spoken before, I have my story to tell, both of a violent sexual attack as a child and a couple more as an adult. Sadly, many women have a similar story to tell. Too many women. But rather than reiterate my story, I'd like to look at what happens next. Before austerity and all the cuts to the police budgets, police dealt with these crimes differently. Most forces had a specialised unit with trained officers dealing sensitively with victims. Specialised officers who were committed to helping a woman to give her story, to get the necessary evidence, to take that case through the courts, to get justice for that woman. These were often dealt with in specific buildings or parts of buildings where doctors and nurses could come in, support the victims, take evidence and help a victim through the ordeal. It was a harrowing experience, even for just going to support a victim, as I can attest, as I did it on several occasions. But since the cuts brought about by austerity, most of these units have closed down. The result has been rates of investigation and prosecution have dropped year on year. Fewer crimes are reported and less than 3% go to trial, which begs the question, where is the justice for these women? The police crime sentencing and courts bill that's currently going through Parliament includes nothing to protect women on our streets. It does nothing to ensure that victims are handled with sensitivity, and it does absolutely nothing to address the woeful levels of prosecutions of the perpetrators of these horrific crimes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
You're muted, Chair.
Sorry, apologies. We've got 5 minutes left. It's very unlikely now that we're going to finish the full business, but I would like the opportunity to bring in Councillor Lancaster and then let the City Mayor close off events. But that would ask that Councillor Joan Walsh pass her opportunity to speak, unless you insist.
Yeah, I just wanted to, well, there was two things I wanted to tell you about. One of them happened in Earlham last week. A young girl, exactly the same as Laura and Shamina, walking home from Earlham and Cadishead High School, and a man in a silver Peugeot, followed her, whistling to her, shouting to her, and he followed her all the way to her house. There's been a report around Earlham and Cadishead to notify everybody. I was panicking because my granddaughter comes from Colchester, and she gets off the bus and she has quite a long walk. And I said she said, oh, well, I walk with my friends. And so I said, right, okay. But my daughter was really surprised. She didn't know. So it is still happening. It is still happening with school children. And the other thing, it's just a quick one. That happened to me, and it's happened to me a couple of times, more when I was younger, not at my age now. But when I've stopped at traffic lights in my car, 4 times it's happened to me, and 4 times I've reported it. A man has exposed himself, and 9 times out of 10 it was outside the school, girls' school. And when I went to the police, I got told there was nothing they could do because was there anybody else around? I said no. They said, well, it's got to be seen by 2 people or 2 police officers. We will send the police officers down. If they see him there again, they can do something. If not, they can't. And I was just wondering whether this still applied today.
Councillor Walsh, I've literally got minutes left.
I'm finished now.
Oh, thank you, Councillor. I'm going to bring in Councillor Lancaster.
Very little because of the time, but I do want to emphasise, when this was raised with me on Monday night, I took a series of actions. One, I was asked whether I'd be agreeable to a task group being set up for 3 or 4 meetings to actually look at this issue, and I was more than supportive of that view. However, because our work has always been on domestic abuse, which is a massive amount of work but doesn't cover the sort of problem which we addressed in this debate so far, I spoke to the deputy mayor for Greater Manchester, and suggested how was she going on with her, because I knew she was doing some research on this particular topic. I've copied into today the report which has been drawn. It's only been released at 2 o'clock today, but the work which has been done on the abuse of women and girls, and it was called Gender Betrayed. I think it's Gender Betrayed. Anyway, it's on gender document, which you look at it. And what I'm suggesting is, besides the working group, which is what you've got, there ought to be a working into that paper, which is out for consultation with the deputy mayor, because together we can get this tackled. It's disgraceful. I mean, it's thrown me completely, this debate today, because I mean, what we're being said is just totally unacceptable behaviour in this modern world. I mean, I should add to it that on Monday night this week, at 10:10 last Monday night, I got a knock on the door of a young girl young lady of about 18, who actually had been abused in the street, on my street, and knocked on my door for support. People are frightened of reporting. We've got to encourage them to report, and we've got to take it quite seriously, that we deal with it as a very urgent item, not just passing it off with a report like today, which is a backlog of something which may have happened over a period of time. What we should be talking about is regular occurrence and how we deal with it and what are the solutions. And the government's answers, quite frankly, from the working party they sort of set up with the cabinet, does not by any means cover the sort of issues which we're talking about today.
Thank you, Councillor Lancaster. I'm afraid this is an important debate, but unfortunately we are completely out of time. And at this point, I'm going to say that items 16 onwards will have to be dealt with at the next council meeting. And with that, at 13:25 on my clock, I'm afraid I'm going to have to close the meeting. I want to thank members and members of the public for putting up with us during this difficult debate and technical issues. And I look forward to seeing you all at the next council. Thank you.
Mayor, could you just announce the electoral matters of meeting at 1:30?
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Mayor.
Thank you,
Chair. Bye. Well done.
Bye.
Well done.